All right, welcome to the Armchair Commanders podcast. My name is John,
And I'm Jack.
and this week we are joined by Ken from the History X channel. And by his request, we are reviewing the movie U-571, which, as we've previously have talked about, is Jack's favorite film of all time.
You know, I was talking shit about that movie numerous times on this podcast, and I rewatched it. It's still not a great movie, but it's not as bad as I remember.
Okay, hold on a second. Hold on. First of all, I'll say hi. Thanks for having me on. I'm thrilled to be with you guys. I've listened to a lot of your episodes. I think you guys really have something special. So I was really honored when you invited me on. But with that being said, U-571. Okay, so you had seen it before.
Yep, seventh grade history class.
John, had you seen it before? You're a submarine guy. You're a submarine movie guy.
I am. I am a sub movie fan. I'm also a big airplane movie fan. I actually I'll show you it later, but I actually have a U-boat on my tattooed on my arm.
Okay. Well, but you didn't answer the question. Had you seen the movie before?
Absolutely. When I was
Okay.
younger, I had this on VHS, and I wore the VHS out on it. So
Okay. So, and then Jack said, terrible movie. Is it, based on what I've heard on your other episodes, is it Pearl Harbor bad?
Mm,
nah, no.
it's less historically accurate, possibly, but I wouldn't say it's a worse movie.
I okay. I love this movie. And John, when you sent me the email, first of all, how did you guys come across me?
Oh, you see, we asked
Oh,
for a crystal ball, and it said your name.
Yeah.
yeah. So YouTube doing what it does. Your channel came across my feed one day because the algorithm was doing its job in your favor. And I checked out your stuff, and I think the video that I came across for you was it was about World War II shipwrecks basically being like divers were going and stealing parts off of it, and I was like, what?
Oh, yeah. In Southeast Asia, that was You're talking about the Repulse and the Prince of Wales.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
there's these like scavengers who are hitting up these shipwrecks, and I'm like, that's a shit thing to do because
yeah.
they're essentially graveyards.
For your listeners that aren't aware, there are people that will dive down on shipwrecks and they'll take a souvenir here and there. They'll grab a piece of whatever, and of course they aren't supposed to do it. But unfortunately, what's happening in Southeast Asia in these international waters, they're literally dredging up these shipwrecks, not just taking bits and pieces. They are blasting these shipwrecks to pieces and then dredging up the steel and selling the steel. And you could say, well, that sounds like a lot of trouble, a lot of time and effort to get scrap steel. But the thing about this steel is that it's pre-atomic steel. I don't know if you caught that in the episode, but that's why the steel is so valuable, and that's why I was so incensed when it was actually a documentary that I had seen that was produced over in Asia, and I literally took that documentary, chopped it up, and rearranged it so that it made sense to me, and added some other content, and then posted on my channel. So I hope maybe your viewers, your listeners, would check it out, because it's heartbreaking when you learn that these scavengers, these salvagers, are literally dredging up these battleships for the pre-atomic steel.
No, and it's like I said, they're legitimately graveyards. So
Yeah.
you know they're not just destroying and dredging up you know historic pieces of history. They're literally disturbing the final resting place of tons and tons of people. So it was when I saw that video, it really caught my attention. And from there, I've seen a bunch of your other stuff, and I guess my question for you. So you said that U-571 is a big film for you. How
Yeah.
did you really get into naval history?
It's just it's my story is no different than a lot of other people. I'm a guy. I'm in my 50s, and growing up, you maybe had three channels on the television, one channel or one television in the house. My father was always watching these these war movies. Of course, my brother and I, we hated it at the time because we wanted to watch something else. But if you want to spend time with your dad and this is what he's doing, or renting VHS movies and bringing them home, inevitably he'd always want to get some kind of a war movie. As you get older, then it's like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool, and you get into this stuff. A regret that I have growing up is both of my grandfathers served in World War II, and I couldn't have possibly cared less at the time. They're both gone, so I wish I would have had the notion or the motivation to learn more about what they did. They were both in the Army. But when it comes to you coming across my YouTube channel, History X, and seeing a lot of the videos that I do, I literally started the channel just because I wanted to learn more about some historical stories. It wasn't even military. It wasn't even World War II. It could have been about I did a video about a torch lighting ceremony over in Barcelona for the Olympics, because it was something I was fascinated by. But you eventually, when you do YouTube or you do Instagram or in your
You
case,
find your niche.
you do, or no, more importantly, it finds you. And
In
I don't know,
Soviet Russia.
what's that?
In Soviet Russia.
No,
Niche
you got
finds you.
you take your podcast, for example, Armchair Commanders. And I don't know if you guys had this idea from the start, but you you learn about not only what your viewers or subscribers want to hear about, but you also, it's what you're passionate about. So my YouTube channel quickly kind of not only went into military history, it went into World War II history, and then I started to make contacts with other museums, Buffalo Naval Park, USS Slater in New York, USS Kidd down in Baton Rouge, the Battleship New Jersey over in Philadelphia, Pearl Harbor. And I spend most of my time now doing videos about warships, shipwrecks. However, like you, John, I do also have a passion for aviation. So that's how it all got started.
All right. See, I had a very similar. You mentioned watching a bunch of like war films with your dad. I very much had a similar thing with my grandfather because he was the kind of guy that every time I went over to his house, he had TMC on the TV, and it was always something in black and white, or it was a John Wayne film. So like, we've mentioned it multiple times where it's like there's a couple of John Wayne films that we've reviewed that we're kind of like, this film is but we're like, I have such a nostalgia piece attached to these films that
Well, you guys did The Longest Day.
yep.
Uh,
And we
uh,
also
what was
we
it?
also did
What?
the Horse Soldiers, and we did that with the Civil Weird podcast.
Yeah, I didn't catch that one, but you guys did The Longest Day, and then the other John Wayne movie that I really liked, which was Navy. That was the Midway movie. What the heck was that? So it was The Longest Day, and then it was John Wayne
Was it In Harm's Way?
in Harm's Way. Yeah, yeah. That's another movie that my father would watch constantly. And at the time, being young, you don't really understand what's going on. But as you get older and it becomes more interesting, you get into some of the intricacies of the code breaking aspects of In Harm's Way. It becomes really fascinating. And then here you guys are reviewing these war movies. I really think you're onto something. I like I said, I've enjoyed a lot of your episodes. Matter of fact, the episode that you did with Blake from the World War II Airborne Demonstration Team, you guys did Operation Market Garden.
Yep.
I just got to say that was
a,
fantastic.
a bridge too
Fantastic.
far.
Yeah.
That's actually our second most streamed episode. And I don't know if you have caught the joke yet, but I bet you can't guess what our number one streamed episode is.
No. No. What is it?
Down Periscope.
No.
Down Periscope is our Citizen Kane.
You've got to be kidding me.
We have, I think we're at like 3,000 some views on YouTube with it, and a few hundred streams.
One of my most favorite lines, and I use the line all the time, came from Down Periscope, even though I despise the movie passionately, is when they first come across the submarine. I think they called it the USS Rust-Oleum or something like that.
Yeah.
And Kelsey Grammer turns to, I forget the name of the actor that plays the XO. It's like, you know,
Rob Schneider.
Yes, yeah. Turns to Rob Schneider and says, "Well, what do you think?" He said, "Sir, I feel like I need a tetanus shot just by looking at it." And I've used that line so many different times throughout my life. If something just looks awful, I feel like I need a tetanus shot just from looking at it. So I at least took something away from that movie. Unfortunately, there wasn't much else I could take from it.
See, if we ever get to the point that we like have a fan base that we can justify making T-shirts, I sincerely want to have like an image of a crab holding a knife, because there's a line in that from Toby Huss is like, sounds like two crabs duking it out.
You know, I mean, yeah, I'm okay. It's an awful movie. It's an awful movie. But what you're talking about, you know, your most downloaded or your most listened to episode or whatever, that I've created videos where I feel like I was just phoning it in, right? I did the bare minimum. I wanted to cover a subject. I didn't have a lot of time. Maybe a subscriber was asking me to talk about a particular subject, whatever. It's like, all right, fine. I'm going to placate them. I'm going to do the video and then move on. And you're not proud of it. You know, you didn't do the greatest job possible. And then all of a sudden the thing's got like 250,000 views. And I don't know. I don't know. So yeah, it's weird how those things work out. I was shocked that you said it was Down Periscope, but then at the same time, now that I think about it, I'm not surprised.
It was also, Down Periscope was like our third episode, so we literally just got started. So like we did that episode and we're like, holy shit, we're taking off, and then we tapered right back down to where we normally sit. We're like, aw.
Get used to it. Get used to it. There's all kinds of ups and downs. You know, sometimes I'm flying, I'll get 1,000 subscribers a day. Other times it's like crickets. It's get used to it. That's all I have to say. So okay, so Jack doesn't like U-571. So here, when you sent me the email, and like I said a few moments ago, I was really thrilled. I didn't know about you guys, but I quickly did some research and I'm, well, they got something really cool going on here. I'm starting to listen to episodes. I really like what you do. So then I don't know if you remember, but you're probably going, is this guy going to respond and give me his movie? I don't know if you remember that, but I took a long time.
Yeah, here's the thing is, like, when I talk to people, and especially when it's like through social media or what have you, I totally get that, you know, people get busy and life is hectic and all that kind of stuff, but like there's been times, I remember there's like one, I messaged somebody right when we started, and then 6 months later I got a response, and then we did an episode like a week later. So I was like, it is what it is. So I don't get too hung up on it.
Nope. That wasn't it at all. I'd like to say that when you sent me the email, I'm going, hey, that sounds great. Sounds like a lot of fun. Oh crap. What movie am I going to pick? It literally took me days to decide. So here, I want to read off my list to you. And I want you guys to tell me, first of all, if you've seen it. You know what? Let's just leave it at that. I want to know if you've seen it. So one of them was Where Eagles Dare.
I don't think we've done that.
No,
One of
I haven't
Clint
seen it.
one of
I'm quite familiar with it, but I haven't
okay.
seen it start to
You haven't?
finish.
All right. One of Clint Eastwood's earlier movies. So Where Eagles Dare, Von Ryan's Express.
I have seen that. Yes.
Okay. Jack.
No,
All right. Das Boot.
Of
it's
course.
on our
Yeah.
list, and
Yeah,
I'm
of course.
excited
I know
for it.
you hadn't reviewed it. You haven't reviewed it. And John, when he sent me the email, said, can't do Saving Private Ryan because that's coming up in an upcoming episode. No big deal. Great movie, but it's not one of them that I would have picked. The Great Escape.
Absolutely.
Okay. Matter of fact, if you look over my shoulder, I've got
I
Steve McQueen on the motorcycle.
Nice.
Fantastic movie. Jack, had you seen it?
Nope.
No?
No, surprisingly.
Memphis Belle.
That was another film that I had the VHS of that I wore out.
Is that on our list?
Yes, it is.
Ah. But no, I
Has
haven't seen that either.
You haven't seen that either.
No, I'm
It
an
has
uncultured swine.
it has Matthew Modine in it.
Yes, it does. Matthew Modine, Sean Astin,
Sean Astin.
John Lithgow.
Billy Zane.
Yes, yeah, Billy Zane. So I was going to pick that, but then it's like, okay, I wanted to stick with Nick. And then the last movie on my list was Greyhound.
Yes,
Tom Hanks.
have seen that.
Jack.
Nope.
John, why is Jack on this show?
Yeah, I know. There were no other applicants.
There was nobody else, right?
I lied on my resume. I got to admit it, John.
So here I am picking U-571. Is there another movie out of that list I just gave you, out of that 6, that you would have rather me chose than U-571?
No.
Me personally, I would have been fine with any of them. I am happy we did do U-571 just because Jack has
Submarine movie.
Hey, it's a submarine movie, but Jack has also talked some shit on it before, so I was like,
Well,
I'm going to make him suffer.
all right, Jack, talk some shit about U-571.
You mean other than the fact that it's complete bullshit that the American forces didn't do this? It was the
Keep going.
British, and
Yep,
it wasn't in 1944. It was way before Americans entered the war, like 4 months, I think. Whatever. And U-571 wasn't the ship itself. That was another ship. U-571 got blown the fuck up in June of 1944.
I can't argue with any of that. You're absolutely correct. Okay. However, and this is one of the reasons why I like U-571. I mean, first of all, I thought it was a real entertaining movie. You know, for somebody that doesn't know anything about World War II, or like if you're on you're with your girlfriend, your wife, hey, you want to watch a movie? Oh yeah, what movie you want to watch? Well, you can't say, oh, we're going to watch a war movie. Hey, do you like Matthew McConaughey?
There you go.
All right.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I love Matthew McConaughey. Bill Paxton. Yeah, I know who he is. Harvey Keitel, whatever. And it's like, yeah, okay, that sounds great. So now
John Bon Jovi.
Yeah, John Bon Jovi, who did a good job, you have to admit. But so first of all, it kind of gets people that don't know anything about World War II to watch. That's kind of, to somebody like me, I'm all about getting more people to watch or appreciate anything related to World War II. I hate video games. I don't know a damn thing about video games, gamers, all that stuff. But yet you cannot ignore the argument that it is the over 10 times larger than movies, cinema, when it comes to getting eyes on World War II related content. So anything, even though Jack's right, it's a historically inaccurate movie, Pearl Harbor bad, but it gets people to watch some World War II related content that they otherwise wouldn't have, selected to stream, put into their DVD player, whatever. So that's one of the reasons why I appreciate it.
It's definitely a gateway film to the subject.
The other thing is, when's the last time you saw a movie about the Enigma?
It was that
a couple of years ago with Benedict Cumberbatch, the
that one
game.
Bennett,
but it wasn't
real calculator.
That was Not yeah, fantastic movie. I don't think that was necessarily about the Enigma, though.
It's about the
It
code.
was it was
Yeah,
about breaking the Enigma code, but it wasn't necessarily about the actual like trying to seize one or
right,
anything of that
right.
nature.
So Jack's 100% correct. I mean, the British Royal Navy, I don't know, they did this like maybe 10, 12 different times. The US only did it once, and by then the Allies had already pretty much broken the Enigma code, at least the Enigma with 3 dials. I don't know about 4, but at least the Enigma with 3 dials. So it had already been broken. But in order to have a movie like this, even created, it's got to be an American movie. Yeah, you could have used Daniel Craig or some other British actor, Colin Firth, whatever. But so in order to get the American market, you got to have Matthew McConaughey and these other names. You've got to have a studio sign on with it. And if you want it to be historically accurate, quite frankly, you're going to have a hard sell.
Yeah.
And I'm all about history. I'm all about getting behind the scenes. I'm all about the facts. If you've checked out History X, you know that. But at the same time, I don't want World War II to die. And if this means getting more people to watch, I'm all about it.
No, it definitely there are so many World War II films that aren't like air quote historically accurate or even quality wise good, but they're fun films or they're action packed films, and they get butts in the seat and they get people interested.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, a good example of that is like when we had the guys from the Civil Weird podcast on here, we did the movie Horse Soldiers. It's a John Wayne film about a Union cavalry raid in the South,
Mm-hmm.
and that film is full of inaccuracies. It completely like glazes over the issues of slavery during the war, lots of issues.
Yeah.
But it's one of those films where it's like, I watched it as a kid with my grandfather, and it got me interested in the Civil War. So
That's
even though
that's
when
all
you
you
first
get to
watch it,
cast.
you don't fully appreciate like, oh, this is kind of a jacked up film. Like it doesn't matter because A, you enjoyed it, and B, you got into the topic. Um, I
There,
just
there. You're exactly right. Now, I will tell you, I know very little about the Civil War. I know for some reason I just know a ton about World War One, World War Two, but there are people out there that know a lot about, say, Roman history, or there are people out there that know a lot about, medieval, Civil War. My focus just happens to be World War Two. So if somebody wanted to get me to watch a movie about the Civil War, and like Gettysburg, for example, fantastic movie, and you guys reviewed that, I believe, and I'm sure there's a lot of historical accuracies, but I should say I'm sure there's a lot of historical inaccuracies in small, depending on how tight you want to get on the details. But
right.
yet that movie got me to watch 4 hours long, but it got me to watch a movie about the Civil War, and I'm all about that. There's a historian, pretty big name. His name's Marty Morgan, and I don't expect you to know who he is, but he's he's a leading historian on things like the Normandy invasion, D-Day, that type of thing. Written a ton of books. He is one of the
Refresh my
leading
memory.
advisors to Sledgehammer Games. Do you guys know about Sledgehammer Games?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Spent they were Sledgehammer is
Okay.
the
Call of
other
Duty.
half that broke when Call of Duty split in half. It was Sledgehammer and Treyarch.
So, yeah, so for the gamer world, Sledgehammer Games created Call of Duty, or they were involved with the development of Call of Duty. And in order to become historically accurate, or to make it as historically accurate as possible, they enlisted or hired guys like Marty Morgan. And the historical community freaked out. Why would you do this? Marty, what are you doing? Video games? Seriously? You're a published author, leading expert, Normandy invasion. What are you doing? He said, look, I can get in front of more people. The audience is much larger, and therefore I can influence them on what their introduction is or what their knowledge of World War II is by enlisting my knowledge in video games over movies, over the books I've written. He said, maybe I'll sell a couple thousand books. There are millions of people that'll see my work with the video games. And it's like, I can't argue with that.
Well, it's like, I think a good example of that is, one of the earliest Medal of Honor games, I believe it was Medal of Honor Frontline. Basically, the storyline is that you start off in the Normandy invasion, and your character, due to his stellar performance in the Normandy invasion, gets picked up to be an OSS agent. And in this game, there's literally a level that, as an OSS agent, you infiltrate a submarine, you kill the entire crew, and then you go and like sabotage a U-boat base. And when I was watching this movie as they were raiding and clearing the sub, I'm like, I immediately thought back to that game and that particular level, and I was like, I was literally waiting, like, there's a scene where the cook like jumps out and tries to hit them with like a frying pan or something, and I'm
I think he
like,
had a butcher knife or something like that. Yeah.
yeah. Well, in the video game level, there's a moment where there is a cook who throws butcher knives at you, and I'm like, what? And this movie came out roughly the same time as that game, and I was like, who copied who here? Like,
It's my favorite kind.
I mean, incestuous market too, I suppose. All right, so I'm sorry I dragged you guys off track, but I just wanted to find out of those movies that I listed,
I think
it really is.
Why wouldn't U-571 be a good one to choose?
No, it's an excellent one to talk about. Like it's obviously given a it we like films that gives us stuff to talk about. Like, we were supposed to have Saving Private Ryan released last week, but we had a scheduling conflict. But the episode before that recording was supposed to occur, we mentioned like, hey, we have this review coming up. And we made the joke, we're like, let's go ahead and get Saving Private Ryan done and out of the way. 5 out of 5 stars. Tom Hanks is great. Wow. Okay, next movie.
Tom Sizemore,
Yeah.
love it.
There are certain films that are like, they're the peak. Like Saving Private Ryan is very much the peak or the epitome of a war film, and it's like, what can you say about it that hasn't already been said? Even like we're going to do it still, but
that's exactly why I was hesitant, because not because it's a bad movie, it's an amazing movie. It's just that it's done to death. Everything that's been said about it has been said, like what's left to talk about.
See, I disagree. I appreciate what you're saying. You're right. Everyone loves it. Fantastic movie. Everyone's talked about it. But there's something to be said for what struck Jack about it. All right. I don't know you. You don't know me or anything like that, but I sure would be interested, especially when you say U-571, you throw out all the historical inaccuracies and everything, but you were aware of them. Maybe you did some research or whatever, but yeah, I'd be interested to see what you liked and what you didn't like about Saving Private Ryan. Everyone's got their own opinions, and that's something that I always find fascinating. Yeah, I could read what other people say about it, but that's kind of why I started my YouTube channel. It's like I wasn't getting the answers that I wanted to get about certain subjects, so then I did my own research, read books on my own, and then threw my opinions out there. Now you're stuck listening to my opinions, right?
Right.
But you got me.
Yeah. So I mean, there's got to be something you didn't like about Saving Private Ryan.
The fading American flag behind aging Matt Damon. Tell me I'm a good man.
It's funny you say that. I had a hard time with that scene, if you want to call it that scene as well, where he kind of collapses and everyone's like, oh, grandpa. And then they come running up. It's like, oh man, they kind of ruined, but you had to have something like that in there, I suppose. Jack didn't say anything though. There's got to be something you didn't like about Saving Private Ryan.
I need to think. Damn it. Um, or maybe the scene towards the end of the final battle where shit's going south fast and Matt Damon's like in a fetal position, rocking back and forth, crying.
I mean, yeah, you probably didn't like that. I could see that I could see that really happening in a
Yeah, me
battle.
too.
Yeah, getting all of a sudden, people are, soldiers are shocked and everything, and all of a sudden they curl up into a ball. The part that I didn't like, that I had a hard time with, was, I wish I could remember the name of the actor, but it was the interpreter, Oppum.
Yep. Yeah.
That, when he didn't get up there, he could have saved that. He could have saved that guy.
Right. No, that's
And
a very powerful scene in that movie.
incredibly power. Yeah. So I had a hard time with it. Now, of course, my grandfather, my mother's father, he did the door-to-door house clearing in France and Germany. And I could see a lot of that stuff happening, that he might have been exposed to. I won't know. But so that was the hard, but is that a historical inaccuracy? No, I'm sure stuff like that happened. But, Saving Private, we all have our problems with the movies. Jack's problem with U-571, right on the money. I mean, the Americans did not grab the Enigma until the U-505. After the code had been broken, but they wanted a submarine. It wasn't really about stealing they just wanted a German U-boat. And so, yeah, it's historically inaccurate. I don't even know if you guys are aware, but even Bill Clinton kind of had to apologize for the movie.
They really.
Well, this is I definitely wanted to touch on this subject, which we mentioned the historical inaccuracies, and you mentioned President Clinton having to do kind of an apology for it, because this film upset people to the point that it was an issue on the floor of Parliament, and they're like,
Right. Oh, yeah.
This is an
Tony Blair.
affront. This is an affront to our service members. All this, that, and the other. And here's where I feel conflicted about it. Is we often have talked on this podcast about films that start off with inspired by a true story or based on a true story. At no point does this movie ever make that. There's not a little title card that says inspired based on whatever. The beginning of this movie says
Is that true? Is that it? Doesn't say anything like that.
No, I
So
made sure I scrubbed back and double
Okay.
checked it, because I was like, hold on a second. But the opening title card just says it's 1942. The U-boats are wreaking havoc, and the Allies are trying to break or capture the Enigma. And then we get into our movie. We get through the entire movie, and at the end it says this movie is dedicated to the Allied soldiers and sailors who did capture it, and it lists the actual dates and the actual ships who did it. So it gives credit to the HMS Bulldog, and so I feel very conflicted, because yes, this story itself in this movie didn't happen, but it never claimed it did. Although one can make the argument that, like, yes, the way this film is portraying it, if you didn't know any better, or if you didn't really do your research, you would take this film at base value as this is how we got the Enigma. But I think it's one of those. It's a film that is, I think it's trying to be an action film and a war film first, and it took inspiration from these different events to come up with this story, but I don't think it's so egregious that it deserved to be brought up in a government legislature as being an issue.
Well, you have to let me start over. If you're going to be a member of parliament or related to us here in the US, and you're going to be a representative of your constituents, and you just happen to have some constituents that, well, hell, all right, you know, your listeners can't see this, but John's wearing a hoodie, Doolittle Raiders. Okay. And of course, in the movie Pearl Harbor, they depict the notion that pilots that took part, that were able to get off the ground during the air raid, were then considered the most experienced pilots to fly a completely different airframe, a B-24 bomber, a B-25 bomber. And so I'm sure you're aware, when they first aired this and they had some of the surviving raiders, you know, they walked out
Yes, yeah.
for the screening.
And
And
it's generally shocks me because last time I checked, I think there's maybe 3 or 4 films that depict the Doolittle Raiders, and
I think there's
with
more than that.
just off the top
But
of my head that I can
sure,
think of.
yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's all good. It's, you know, I liked the bombing scene from Pearl Harbor where the Doolittle Raiders do their thing, but yes, your thing about the pilots that were chosen, like that's nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously it blows my mind that I think the best Doolittle Raider movie we have was one that was, I think it was made in 44 or 45, but it's based off of one of the Raiders books, 30 Seconds Over
30
Tokyo.
seconds over Tokyo. Yeah.
And it's like, why is it, can we just get like one solid Doolittle Raider movie made today? Like,
I would love that. I would love that. I just think, though, in order to get people that wouldn't normally watch a war movie, and not to be sexist or anything like that, but war movies are traditionally viewed by males, not necessarily by females. But in order to, hey, you want to watch a movie tonight? How about a movie with Ben Affleck and what's the name of the other actor?
Josh
Who's
Hartnett
that guy?
and Kate
Thank you, Josh
Beckinsale.
Hartnett. Yeah, hell yeah. You know, she'll watch a movie with Josh Hartnett all day long.
Heck
And
yeah.
Yeah.
so
That was our last episode.
you get more people to watch it. And I'll be in Pearl Harbor in March and everything like that, and I'm looking forward to actually walking around those, you know, but to even just show that to people that may never make it over to Hawaii, or, you know, to it's like, to get them to ask, did that really happen? You know, I think is important. Now, going back to U-571, you know, like I said many times, Jack's right, and you guys talked about, you know, the British did a heck of a lot more to steal the Enigma and intercept these uh, code materials, you know, like the weather ciphers and everything like that. Which, but see, if the movie was never made, nobody would even be prompted to question, well, what is the deal with that typewriter looking thing? What is a weather cipher? Why was that so important? You know, U-boats, huh? Don't really know about that. And so I tend to back it way back and say, hey, look, you know, yeah, not historically accurate. I mean, I even made a list here before I got on here. There were some real small details that some people could have a problem with. And Jack, tell me if you have a problem with this. But Harvey Keitel, you know, traditionally, the order to submerge is dive, correct? You go dive.
Yeah, he says it 3 times.
Says it 3 times.
Which I'm not going to hold that against this movie. I didn't know until, well, this morning when I was reading more about this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
you know, and besides, I like dive better than dive because it's more just
More
the rule of
dramatic.
3. Rule of
authoritative.
Mm-hmm.
I have a pedant moment that I wanted to bring up.
What's that?
So there's a scene.
By the way, I'm really enjoying having this conversation with you guys because, you know, we don't know each other, just met, but I already feel like, you know, we could talk for hours. So go ahead.
No, I'm digging it. So my pedant moment, and I know it's like, who cares about this? But they make a big deal over the depth that they're diving to, which obviously
it is
World
a
War
submarine movie.
Yes, it's a submarine movie. We got to have the fear of crushing to death at some
Gotta
point.
get under these things.
Yep.
Um,
Crush
but
death. Oh no.
and granted, World War II submarines did not have the ability to go to the depth that modern submarines go to. That's not the issue here. But you know, they're talking about like I think they're like 150 meters is what they mention as being like their max of what they'll do. And when they're in the German U-boat, the depth gauge maxes out at 200, and there's like the little red section, so you know like, oh, they're at 200, like it's real dangerous, and then like they go below that and you're like, they're pushing the limits. But
Yeah.
like if you just do a quick little Google search, you'll see that German U-boats were rated for 230 meters, and you know there's accounts of them going even a little deeper than that. But like it makes me angry that it's like obviously these allied sailors are not going to know what the German U-boat is actually rated for. Like I'm not angry at that. I am angry that like a German U-boat just has 200 as the cutoff for its gauge. It's like, come on guys, we know that gauge would go farther than what its actual max safe cutoff is.
Well, okay, now we can really get in the weeds on this if you want to. All right. Now, are we talking about a Type 7 U-boat? You know, I mean, we could really tear this apart if you want to. I am not a U-boat expert. I am a U-boat fan. Okay,
I would put myself in the same category. I'm a
Okay,
U-boat
I
fan.
refer to a sub enthusiast.
So I love that. I love that. I have visited the U-505 in Chicago at the Museum of Science and Industry. I highly recommend it to anyone that is visiting Chicago. Visit the Museum of Science and Industry and check out the German U-boat, the U-505 that's on display there. It is fantastic. Fun to walk through, amazing to walk around, and I believe that's a Type 7. I could be wrong. And, you know, just like anything else, you come out with bigger and better. And so you're right. I think that depth gauge did top out at 200. I don't know. Maybe that's what the Type 7 topped out at. Who knows? And then you said you do a Google search and now they're rated at 230. I'd be curious to find out what type U-boat that was. I recently did an interview. You ever watch the History Channel Deep Sea Detectives?
Was that show actually with History Channel?
Yeah. This is like 10, 15 years ago. Deep Sea Detectives, these guys would go exploring shipwrecks.
Oh yeah, it had wasn't it the guy who now does the Allstate commercials? Was
That's
like
all states, Stan. Are you in good
the
hands?
narrator? God, what?
That I don't know. That I don't know. But it was so the two guys, they were divers, Richie Kohler and John Chatterton. And they did like maybe 50 episodes checking out different shipwrecks around the world. And I recently had the thrill of interviewing Richie Kohler, and he to ask him about, he helped to identify or led the effort to identify a German submarine off the coast of New Jersey, the U-869. And the U-869 came out at the very end of World War II, probably one of the last subs produced. So does that make it, I don't know, a Type 9? I'd have to go back in my notes and look. But I don't think it was a Type 7. So maybe a Type 9, Type 9C, whatever, maybe they could dive deeper. So I really don't know. Like I said, we can really get in the weeds here, but I'm not going to I will fault the movie for going dive, dive, dive.
Right.
Rather than I'll fault the movie for having a gauge that goes to 200. I will fault the movie. You know, you think about cop movies from decades ago. It's like, when is this guy going to reload his gun? How many shots has he fired already?
Man, this revolver has a massive capacity.
I want one of those revolvers. That thing, he shot 22 times before he stopped to reload. Well, how many depth charges did that German destroyer?
I have the number.
30.
What?
80 depth charges is what that destroyer dropped, versus I believe it was the source I was looking at mentioned that the average number of depth charges a destroyer from the German Navy would have carried would have been in like the 30 range.
Yeah,
Sure.
like
Yeah.
the
But yes,
numbers I read was 18 typically, but 30 during wartime.
but yes, somebody went through and counted it. It was 80 depth charges.
Yeah. And a ridiculous amount of depth charges to have on one boat. First of all, they take up a lot of space. Second of all, Germany, their munitions manufacturing capacity was extremely diminished. And so they didn't have that many to just throw on one destroyer and have it
No.
putt around the middle of the Atlantic, right? So to have that many depth charges dropped, and then if you watch the movie Greyhound with Tom Hanks, he ran into in the movie they depict him running into trouble in the very beginning, and that movie was actually based on a book. I think that was the Good Shepherd.
Good Shepherd.
No,
Yeah.
the Good,
It was
it the Good Shepherd?
It was either the Good Shepherd or like Shepherd of the Sea, something like that. But Shepherd was
Something
in
like
the
that,
name.
yeah. And so the captain ran into trouble because he kept doing full spreads of depth charges, and all of a sudden his lieutenant came up as like, we're out of depth charges. It's like, what? I just did 3 spreads. Yeah, three spreads of 7. That's 21. And I think we've got a couple, stored down in the crew's quarter. So they ran low after doing just 20. So to have this German this German destroyer drop all these depth charges without the proverbial reloading like in these cop movies, I just, so do you have more of a problem with that kind of stuff, or do you have more of a problem with the fact that they depict an American effort at recovering the Enigma? I don't know. Everyone could have their thing.
That's tough. Because I get the purpose of the scene, like, because you can't have a submarine movie without a depth charge scene. It's a rule.
You just
can't.
yeah.
I got another one for you. Okay, I got another one. Check this out. So when the resupply sub shows up, the real German resupply sub shows up, right?
I also know where you're going with this one.
Yeah, me too.
Well, hold on a second. I lost my train of thought.
Were you going to talk about the difference between like an attack sub versus a milk cow?
No. Well, okay. So there is one thing about milk cows, and I'm sure if you did a little bit of research, you'll know that a milk cow, the resupply subs, they did not have torpedoes.
That's where I thought they couldn't have fired with it. So.
They couldn't have fired a torpedo, but you take it a step further, and this depicted an underwater sub battle where they fired torpedoes at each other.
We actually there's a term for it, and it's one of Jack's favorite terms.
What's that?
Hot sub on sub action. That's
real hot, real
inaccurate,
wet,
but hot.
Real hot, real wet sub on sub action. Okay. Now, that's only happened one time in history of submarines.
I do know that.
The Venture versus the 864. And so when you talk about inaccuracies, here's this sub firing on another sub, but that's only happened once ever, where a sub was sunk by another submarine submerged. Like I said, that was the Venturer versus the 864, which, by the way, is leaking a ton of mercury off of Norway. But
anyway. What's a little bit of what's a little bit of mercury poisoning between friends?
So we can shoot holes in this movie, but the other thing that we could do is we could also credit it for all the stuff it did right.
Right.
I mean, if you think about the set design, these guys, they talked about, the technical problems that had to be overcome. Like, they couldn't find the equalizing valves, trying to figure out the impulse air. I mean, those are details. Why would you ever put that in a movie? Who cares?
White for green.
Right. The Christmas tree. Exactly. Yeah. And people say, why do they call it a Christmas tree? Well, because on an American boat, the lights are green. Okay, on a German boat, they're white.
Yeah,
And yeah, white for green, klar for clear, all that stuff. Then they say it might get people to question, well, what is a Christmas tree?
Right.
Do you know what was the Christmas tree used for? Do you know?
Make
lights.
sure everything is clear so you don't sink your shit when
Yep.
you go down.
You're on the right track to make sure that all those different lights, which registers for a different compartment, registers pressure. Because if there's a hull breach, all of a sudden that compartment isn't going to be pressurized and you can't dive, right? So you got to make sure that all those lights are lit before you take the sub down. And so for if that gets someone to start asking questions, hey, what is a Christmas tree on a submarine? I think that's worthy.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So we had already mentioned a few of the tropes in this film, and we had talked about them in Run Silent, Run Deep, because when we did the review of that film,
that was
we're like, oh, this is a trope salad. But when you think about it, Run Silent, Run Deep literally created the submarine movie genre.
Trope maker.
So in this movie, we have the depth charge scene. We have
the trash gambit.
The trash gambit, where
they shoot out trash and maybe a body to fool the enemy into thinking they sunk it.
You have the hot sub on sub action. You have the holding your breath moment as the sub does an emergency dive and just barely clears underneath the keel of another ship. And my personal favorite, which is the torpedo skimming along the side of your sub, making a loud noise.
Yep.
Man,
so
badass salty submarine captain.
Was of submarine movie tropes, Ken, what is your favorite submarine movie trope?
Well, first of all, you're going to make me look up the word trope.
It's something that gets replayed constantly within a certain genre.
It's not as egregious as a cliche. It's more like a tool for a movie.
Okay.
Cliches are like fucking Band-Aids or locusts in a farmer's field.
Oh man, that is a good question. What is the submarine cliche? Are you saying the submarine cliche that I have a problem with, or submarine cliche that I appreciate the most?
The one that when you see it in a submarine movie, you're like, yeah, because for me, it's that torpedo skimming the side of the sub that I'm like, there we go. Now it's a sub movie.
You know what? I didn't realize this until in the movie Greyhound. And I thought they depicted the way that German U-boats are very small, or considerably smaller than U.S. submarines. And so in the movie Greyhound, I always got a kick out of just a submarine just coming out of the water, or just going under the water, breaking the surface, or just diving down. And so in the movie Greyhound, they actually depicted some of these submarines coming up and just kind of bobbing left and right, because as soon as you get the wave action, applied to the hull of that small submarine, you get that movement. That was my thing. So yours was a torpedo scraping along the hull. The other thing is for me, and they kind of did this in the beginning of U-571, where the German captain, they've fired torpedoes, and then he starts eating a peach. All nonchalant, just kind of.
Wait, wasn't that an orange that he was eating with the skin and all?
That was Das Boot. That was Das Boot, where the chief, the engineer, or I think it was the chief engineer or whatever, he sees that crate of oranges and he grabs it and bites right. You probably hadn't seen an orange in 2.5 years. But yeah, so in U-571, he's eating, I think it's an apple or a peach, I don't know. And he's just kind of nonchalantly, it's like
just waiting for the hit to register.
Yeah. Yeah, or Sean Connery in Hunt for Red October. he sits in his chair and they're going through the caverns and he tightens his seatbelt. He's all relaxed and all that. So the real calm, collected submarine captain. I like that too. So yours is the torpedo scraping along the side of the hull. Mine's is when it's just breaking the surface, whether it's diving or surfacing. What about Jack? What's your submarine favorite?
Got to be the trash gambit, like that.
Shooting the trash out clearing the bilge of all the oil and shooting the trash out the torpedo tube.
And they maybe load their dead compatriot into the submarine too to really sell it, and they have this really sad goodbye. I'm sorry, Maslow.
Yeah, 100%. There's always something we always key in on, but for me it's the diving and the surfacing. I got another one for you guys. Did it cross your minds? Why did the German submariners, sorry, can't say submariners, have these black ski hats on with the pom-poms?
Because standard issue?
Yeah, but why?
Because the palms distract the enemy subconsciously. Like, if they're aiming for your head, the enemy will subconsciously try to shoot for the palm until I don't fucking know.
My personal theory is that
Jack's an idiot.
my personal theory is that the Germans, as we have discussed previously, very snappily dressed, and we all know that a knit cap with a palm on top is more snappy than just a regular watch.
Oh,
cap.
yes.
So
no,
yeah, what is the reason for the poofball hat?
On submarines, compartments are so tight, they would wear those hats, and if they bumped their head, the pom-pom was supposed to add some extra protection.
Okay, that makes more sense than my theory.
Yeah. You think?
I don't know. We'll have to test this sometime.
I had to look that up after I saw this movie, and I'm going, why would they take the extra material to make a little ball on top of the hat? There had to be a reason, right? And come to find out, that's what it was. Is they put those pom-poms on top, those little knit balls on top of the ski hats to, if they bash their head during a depth charging or whatever, it would add a little bit of extra protection.
I will say one thing. It's a weird thing to key in on, but like anytime we have a German submarine in a movie, I always love. There's something about a U-boat commander's white cap and just the way that it's kind of floppy. It just it gives me that like rugged seaman appearance where it's like, no, this is like a sailor, versus like, we see what the Allies wear with their kind of more firm structured caps, and it's like, they're officers, but like they don't seem hard as nails without their white floppy hat.
Yeah, all kind of like scrunched up. Maybe it's got some oil stains on it, whereas the matter of fact, I actually had some. Well, I'm not going to share my screen. Well, no, maybe I will. Hold on a second. I'm going to actually, I think I have the option to share a screen here. I think I'm going to try this.
Ooh, podcast first.
What?
First time on the podcast. Yeah, we've never tried screen sharing before.
Well, here, because let me see if I can do this.
Oh snap! This is cool.
What?
For our listeners at home, it's almost like a Discord server now.
So if you look, this is a scene, and you know what? I know I'm doing your listeners a disservice because they can't see this, but on the American boats, they're in their khakis. The one guy's got a tie on, and then you think about the German crews. There's your captain with the white hat all pulled down, got some stains on it and everything. So these guys look like shit. And then you look at the American crews, and they're a lot cleaner. They're shaved, it just kind of lets you realize how bad it was, for the Germans, the conditions that they had aboard their boats versus the the Americans aboard their boat. Now, what the problem with this is the fact that they were supposed to be aboard the S-33, which was a very old boat,
Right.
but they're all pressed shirts. Look, none of them are wrinkled. So
One guy's
that
wearing a tie. Also,
yeah.
I don't even. That's not
Yeah.
the proper tie, is it? It should
I
have
don't
been the same
know.
color, I think.
I don't you might have a point there.
Oh well.
I don't know.
Pedantics.
Yeah. And then there was another thing I wanted to ask you guys about. Two other scenes. Jack, what was your opinion on which one do I want to ask you about first? What was your opinion on, in the beginning of the movie, the Germans' decision to machine gun the lifeboat?
I read somewhere that there's literally no recorded instance of this happening, at least at this time in the war. The Germans were surprisingly Boy Scouts about surrendering at sea.
German sailors. That's what I've always read. The German sailors were incredibly respectful of the enemy.
The Wehrmacht, however, but and it's literally a war crime. And as far as I could tell, the only reason they stopped like taking prisoners later in the war and like feeding them and shit is because the Americans would try to sneak guns on board when they were taken prisoner, which is, again, that's called perfidy and is a very big no-no in the Geneva Conventions.
Oh, see, I wasn't aware of that.
But yeah, yes. That's your word for the day, is perfidy. When you feign a surrender, take advantage of the surrender to launch a counterattack against an enemy. It's punished more severely than killing unarmed civilians in battle. Fun fact.
Well, I got trope written down here, so
we're an educational podcast.
Yeah.
Something like that.
And then the other scene was when the German scout plane was flying overhead, and you've got, the one character. I keep wanting to say Carpazzo, but that was Vin Diesel's character in Private Ryan. The heck was that guy's name? The one that got shot out.
Milazzo.
What was it?
I'm pretty sure it was Milazzo.
You're close. Mazzola?
Something like, he was the one that Matthew McConaughey punched, right?
Yeah.
He's like, this is not a democracy.
Oh yeah, mozzarella.
What the hell are you doing? This is not a democracy. Rabbit, get your finger off that trigger. So I also like that scene a lot. That I thought that was pretty good. I don't, has no bearing on historical accuracy or inaccuracy or anything like that. I just thought it was really well done.
So I guess terrible segue, but of our actors, whose performance was your favorite in this film?
Oh, I don't know the guy's name. Oh man, there's so many. Seaman Wentz.
Oh my god, that brings up a thing I completely forgot until this moment. Like at near the beginning of the film, they bring him in and they're like, Sprechen Sie Deutsch kind of deal, and he's like, yep, I do. And then he looks over to Matthew McConaughey. He's like, please don't tell the fellas I'm half German. They'll hate me. Yeah. I'm like,
motherfucker, your last name is Hirsch.
Yeah.
One, your last name is Wentz. It's not a fucking surprise there. Secondly, like, how big of a fucking German population does the United States, like?
Huge.
Oh, big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had such a large German immigrant population in the United States that we literally had to like custom tailor a propaganda campaign in the First World War to be like, turn on the Kaiser. Like, it just, the fact is like, if they find out I'm half German, they'll hate me. It's like, no, they won't.
Yeah. Asshole.
Yeah. That was only the Japanese. You had all these Japanese American
Oh yeah,
families, a lot of
we treated them terribly. Yeah.
Awfully.
terribly. But for him to say that, I didn't have a problem with that line. It did make me raise an eyebrow a little bit. It's like, really? I mean, hell, even the Pennsylvania Dutch spoke German.
Right.
But I
We
mean,
know
come
what kind
on.
of
Maybe
rapscallions
they
they
were
are.
maybe
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
collaborators.
But so you asked me my favorite characters. I like that Seaman Wentz character, even when they're rowing over to the German sub and Hirsch clams up and he can't, he kind of freezes and Wentz comes to the rescue. I like that. The I, I hate to say it. I like John Bon Jovi's character.
I'm severely disappointed because at this time, like 90s and early 2000s was still the prime of like, okay, we're going to hire a big name musician to come up with a song specifically for a movie. Like I think the last time I really noticed it was when like somehow Linkin Park got roped into providing the musical score for all the Transformers, but
he didn't do anything for the
no,
soundtrack of this movie, did he?
no, he didn't, and that was what surprised me.
Oh.
It's like I don't know if he wanted to be in this or they're like, hey, let's get some. So I don't know how that worked out, but I was
As
shocked.
I understand it,
I
think it was a Howard Stern. I think it was a Howard Stern interview I heard where he was talking to John Bon Jovi because they're friends, and I think Howard asked him if he'd ever been in a movie, and he didn't really name it by name. He said, "Yeah, but I was in a submarine movie. I wanted to be in a movie." And he's talking, I was in a submarine movie. Well, of course, that's U-571, right? So he wanted to be in it. He wanted to be in a movie.
But I was just shocked that like when the movie ended that we didn't have some custom Bon Jovi song for it. But I remember when I watched the movie, I rewatched it last night, and I texted Jack at the first moment that I saw Bon Jovi come up on screen. I was like, I texted him the lyrics to "You Give Love a Bad Name," but I was like, "You give subs a bad name."
Bad or something like Wanted, Dead or Alive. I'm trying to think of some others and I can't think of it. But I actually thought he did. I thought he did an okay job. I mean,
Yeah.
there's better actors out there, but and then I don't know if he was a Marine, but that major that was supposed to train them all before.
Yeah, where's our
get them ready?
What happened to our training montage? We didn't get a training montage.
Oh right, yeah. I actually would have enjoyed seeing that.
That's a running joke we have here. Is you're gonna need a montage.
Montage.
Yeah, it's like I'm gonna go sailing with you boys. This is my luggage.
Yeah, and it's a truck full of explosives.
Yeah, I just like that. I will say my least favorite character is, and I feel bad because I really like that actor. I can't remember his name for some reason. I just can't remember actors' names really. But the cook.
Yes, I forgot.
Yeah, the American cook. I like that actor. I've seen him in a lot of stuff, but unfortunately, I thought that character was kind of forced. So
which I had to look it up because so his name is T.C. Carson.
Is that his name, T.C. Carson?
Yeah,
I would have gotten that wrong.
It's the top result I have on the Google Box machine, but
okay.
I had to look it up because obviously, for most of World War II, the Navy was pseudo segregated, so there were African Americans who served on warships with other with white sailors, but they were relegated to cook roles, that kind of stuff.
Cooks and janitors.
Yeah,
cooks and
so
janitors.
yes, they were on ships with air quotes integrated ships, but they were given all the shit jobs to do.
Well, case in point, Pearl Harbor, Cuba Gooding Jr. played Doris Miller,
right,
who was a cook, made it up top, grabbed a 20 millimeter, I think it was. Had no training on it whatsoever, and shot down 2 planes.
One of my
Matter of fact,
favorite
they're gonna name an
scenes.
aircraft carrier after him in 2029. They're gonna name a carrier after him, the
Badass.
USS Doris Miller.
Yeah, the first non-commissioned sailor to have a carrier named that. Because it's been presidents and then obviously like famous battlefields, but he's the first non-commissioned member of the military service to have a carrier named after him. At least I think he is.
Well, I mean, you'd have the USS Franklin, and Ben Franklin was not.
Yeah, but I mean, he's a founding father, so I mean that's.
Yeah, I guess he had a little bit to do with the creation of the U.S. Yeah,
But
yeah, I guess so.
With him, because I saw him, I was like, this feels a little out of place, so I had to Google it. But apparently, yes, there was still African American like mess stewards on submarines. Because I was like, submarines are super small ships. That doesn't feel like something they at this time they'd want to integrate because still a very racist time in our country.
Yeah, incredibly divisive and everything like that. But you're absolutely right. They did it. No, some of the stuff I'm talking about was some of the force stuff, like at the very end. When they trigger drown. Tank comes up from the back. Engineering compartments, trigger drown. And Matthew McConaughey. What I'm talking about. Matthew McConaughey says, "Well, he never gave up, did he?" And then TC, what's his name? TC Carson turns around. It's like, neither did you, Mr. Taylor, or whatever his name was in the movie, and those forced comments, just like, unfortunately, they put them all on this one actor. And I'm going, oh, man.
I will say one great line he had I think really demonstrates how African Americans were kind of treated or seen as lesser people at this time, which is he comes up to Matthew McConaughey as they're first loading up the sub at the beginning of the film. Yep. And this is when Matthew McConaughey is doing his like, oh, I didn't get my own submarine thing.
Well, woe is me, yeah.
Yeah, and so TC Carson comes up to him and offers him a cigarette, and it is supposed to show that like Matthew McConaughey is still kind of like one of the boys type deal. But Matthew McConaughey, and talking to TC Carson, he's like, you knew about this. He's like, oh, you'd be surprised at things I hear. It's one, being a mess steward.
Nobody sees you.
Yeah, like it's
nobody
sees. Yeah, seen but unseen. And it's like, I was like, that is a criminally underrated line in this movie that really shows like what how they were kind of treated in the service at that time.
I'd agree with that. So who was your favorite character?
Let's go, Jack. Who was your favorite?
I actually like the black cook.
You did.
Got an interesting perspective on things. Rip Trigger.
Wait, what?
Rest in peace, Trigger.
Oh, you like Trigger?
Yeah, I like
Trigger.
Our little bilge swimmer.
Mm-hmm. He actually had. Oh no! Wait, I'm sorry. I was thinking. It wasn't Trigger. It was Rabbit. Rabbit was the one that Rabbit and Wentz were the ones that McConaughey told, "Hey, get that deck gun manned. We're gonna shoot out the radio shack on the destroyer." And it was Rabbit that said, "Gun ready, in all respects, sir," and all that. I like that character. I think with them picking Trigger to drown, I think they made a good choice. If someone's got to drown, I think it should have been Trigger.
Wow.
I was good with that.
Man, it just goes to show that whoever Matthew McConaughey puts his faith in dies.
You're right about that.
Imagine like in an alternate universe where Trigger actually does it and survives, and he goes up to Matthew McConaughey. "You were right, sir. I could do it." And he said, "Oh, I didn't mean you could do it and live," and then shoots him.
Fun fact: Trigger we still need your body for the trash.
Oh yeah,
for the trash deception.
No, that was That was mozzarella that they used.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
Mazzola.
The guy that was
Yeah.
shot 3 times.
So, okay, so your favorite character was the cook. Who was your least favorite?
That little German POW cocksucker that they kept around. Like,
The captain?
yeah, he beats the
No,
shit out of one of your.
he was the electrician. He was
that-
like
That's the captain.
No, he was
You guys know that.
I thought he was.
I thought he
You
was
guys
the
know that, right?
I thought he was the electrician.
He said he was the electrician.
Oh, right.
Oh my god.
That's the captain of the U-boat.
Oh my god. I have never in all of my watchings
Yeah,
made that
hold on a second.
connection.
I'm sorry.
Oh
When
my-
a German man says he's one thing, I tend to believe him.
Stand by while I share my screen again. And
my world has been shattered. Oh my god, it is him.
that's the captain.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Wait, so they just fished some electrician out of the water.
Well, because the electrician was like he was like an integral part to the like in the opening scene, because the entire mechanics crew dies in the opening scene.
Yeah.
So it's literally the electrician and then the scooter repairman that's trying to get the engine running again.
Right.
So
no. It was the captain, because they, even when they boarded the sub, it's like, all right, who's the captain? Who's the captain? They wanted to find the captain, and he wouldn't admit that he was the captain. And then all of a sudden they fish him out of the water, and it's the captain.
But
I hope
anyway,
my world has.
What do you mean? Wait, did Jack just say anyway?
What I was getting to my
has
point, like that little fucker like beats up one of the crew members and then shoots mozzarella.
Yeah.
And then they just keep him around still. And then he does the predictable thing by tapping out Morse code like I am U-571 sink me, and that's when they bust his schnitzel with that wrench.
Yeah, the Hirsch kills him.
I
with
would
the
have
wrench
busted his
in the
schnitzel after the
library.
whole killing mozzarella thing.
He I don't know why they, and put him into submission. How about we just kill him?
Yeah, like fucking
Yeah.
But I guess we needed to advance the plot and, give a reason why they kept detecting us.
Let's see. I wanted to.
I know this has been. I know I've had quite the reaction to this, but for the number of times I've seen this movie, the fact that only just now that I recognize and understand that it's an earth-shattering revelation to me, and honestly, it makes me feel less of a movie reviewer because of it.
No. I've seen A Bridge Too Far. I mean, I could be all dramatic and say hundreds of times. Obviously, that's not true, but I've seen it so many times. And it seems like every time I watch A Bridge Too Far, I pick up something new. And I know the history of Arnhem. I there's a lot of stuff that I know, but it's just, I don't know. Every time I watch that movie, I just pick up something new. And it happens all the time. It's like, oh, how did I miss that? Or, oh, that's what they were talking about. And I'm sure there's there's other movies like that. I can't think of any right now, but A Bridge Too Far is a perfect example of that. So, and then you know what? And then that's why I kind of like what you guys have going on here, because you talk about all these different movies that I've seen. Well, I haven't seen Horse Soldiers, but in getting other people's perspectives on these movies that I've seen so many times, it's really interesting. And then you had, and I'll go back to it, that guy Blake, when when he was talking about A Bridge Too Far, the guy, his thing is doing these airborne reenactments, jumping out of these planes, all that stuff, and you get his perspective on it. I don't know, I just really like what you guys do. So then I hear these reviews, and we're probably going to rank it. I don't know how many torpedoes or whatever you guys, the ranking system is going to be. I just really like listening to your episodes, because you hear these different perspectives from people that are just as passionate about these subjects as I am, and I get a kick out of that.
So is it just me, or is there always an Italian name on these World War II movies? Like, I feel like every World War II movie we've seen has like a Sergeant Boyardee rigatoni in their ranks.
Mazzola,
Mazzoli,
Mozzarella.
yeah,
Capurzo.
or Carpazzo, Vin Diesel's character and Private Ryan. Yeah, I think you're right about that, Jack. There has to
I mean,
be,
yeah,
they have to shoehorn an Italian in somewhere.
yeah, there were a lot of Italian Americans too at this time.
How about, but they always have to shoehorn, like Band of Brothers had
Oh, the New York, like
the New Yorkers.
they're
Yeah,
they're
and
always
of course you had Toy and you had Garnier and everything. Of course, I mean that was based on real people,
Yep.
so they really were from New York. But then you go to Private Ryan, which is a work of fiction primarily, and you had again those guys from, like, the one actor, he had Brooklyn, New York on his backpack. So you got to have a New Yorker shoehorned in. So just as much as an Italian, you got to have a New Yorker.
it's like did you ever watch King of the Hill much?
No,
No,
never
I've
did.
never seen
I
an
mean,
episode.
I know what it is, but I've never seen
I'm
it.
kidding. I
there
love that show.
So it's one of our favorite shows, both me and Jack. It's something that we bonded over. And you had asked this earlier, but just as like a origin story for us, you asked like, Jack, what are you doing on this show? So we went to college together.
Where'd you
And
guys go to school?
University of South Dakota.
The Jackrabbits?
No,
No, god damn it.
don't say that around. we were the
What?
Coyotes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the Jackrabbits
you were
are our
like-
mortal enemies.
You're like the third person
my-
we've said that to. And every time we say University of South Dakota, everybody always says, "Oh, the Jackrabbits." And we're like, "No."
I'm sorry. Well, you know where I am, right?
No.
You're up in Minnesota.
I'm in Minneapolis.
Okay.
So
close by.
4 hours away from Sioux Falls, and I've got a very good friend who went to.
SD-
Well, hold on a second.
Is it if it's the Jackrabbits you're thinking of, it's SDSU.
SDSU. That's what he went to. He's a donor there and all that stuff. So that's what I thought you were talking about. Anyway, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
So our origin story is
As John takes a big pull on his drink after that.
Oh, I can't wait to tell our listeners what I've been drinking today. It's so we bonded over, like, as college kids do. We literally would have like a movie night every single night. And so that's one of our things that really grew our friendship together, is we always watch movies together. Well, I got my degree in history from USD. So
Oh, that's right. You talked about that in one of your episodes. That's right. You majored in history. No, you minored in history.
no, I majored.
You majored?
Yep.
Okay.
So I got my degree in history, and as lots of, I'm closing in on, I'm 29, soon to be 30. I had my midlife crisis a little early in my life. And so I did what anybody with a midlife crisis does, which is start a podcast. And I was like,
100%.
so I was like, and right about the time I made this decision, one of my favorite podcasts that I listened to folded. And what they did was they reviewed war movies. So there was kind of like that gap where I was like, man, I miss listening to this stuff. So I was like, why don't I just do this? Well, I was like, I'm not going to do a podcast by myself. That's not any fun. So
Yeah.
I went to my old movie watching buddy, and I was like, that's how we got started. I was like, so yeah, like when we were in college, we do movie nights together. We used to go to this the theater in the town that we went to college. It was a 2-screen movie theater, and we used to go there like every
now
other
it's
week.
three.
Wait, they have 3 screens now?
Yeah, dude. They upgraded.
Oh my god, we're gonna have to.
Jack, are you still in South Dakota?
I am. The capital.
And what about you, John?
Colorado.
You're in Colorado, okay, and Jackson, South Dakota.
Yep.
Yeah, I went to school. I went to Ohio University in Athens, Ohio, and had friend. I studied mechanical engineering, and not known for our social lives. And I had friends like that too, where you'd watch movies together, and you know, um, definitely good time. So I could see why you drag Jack into a mess like this.
Yeah.
You know,
Not to mention,
um,
Jack is he's big into performing arts. Like he participates a lot with a local theater company too. So
I do. I'm a
really,
producer.
like what? Tell me more. I love that stuff.
Yeah, the current production I'm a part of is Clue. Like, I'm Wadsworth the butler.
Really?
Oh man, it's gonna be the
Wow.
hardest role I've ever had too.
That's fantastic.
Oh yeah, I love it.
What are some of the other roles you've done?
It's hilarious. I was Reverend Samuel Paris in The Crucible last year.
I don't know that one. I mean, I know The Crucible. I had to read the book and all that stuff. So
yeah,
um,
that was a fun one.
yeah, I know. I did theater stuff. Loved it. Loved it. Nothing in college. Nothing in college. It was strictly high school.
he also did Radium Girls.
Did what?
That was the first one I did for Peer Players, and it's about the Radium Girls scandal back in the 20s or 30s, where the women would paint with radium paint on watches to make them glow in the dark, and they would wet the brushes with their lips, and
they'd get cancer from it.
Yeah,
I can imagine. Yeah. No, I don't know that story. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
The remains of them are still radioactive.
Really?
Yeah.
Jeez. Well, telling me that story about how you guys, would watch movies together in college, and now you've created this podcast, like you said, Midlife Crisis and all that stuff. I can totally identify with that. You piss me off a little bit though, in that I wish I would have recognized my midlife crisis earlier. I didn't start doing this until I was 50, right? And here you are, you're recognizing a passion or an interest or something like that. Of course, it's a lot easier to create a podcast than it was, decades ago. But
yeah,
I say good for you. And to do this, it's a lot of fun. First of all, like I said in the beginning, I was really thrilled to get your email, but it's also exciting and I've said this several times throughout the course of this podcast, it's exciting or it's fun to talk about these things that we love, movies, with other people that are just as passionate about the subject, whether it's World War II or movies or whatever. Jack's a hater, I get it. But and I sent you that email, John. I don't know if you recall, but I sent you that email about other people that I've come across after creating History X, curators at other museums. And you could say it's like, oh, they're probably stuffy guys, but everybody loves movies.
Yeah, and it's like when I sent you that reply, I was like, I would say at least 75% of the people that we have on this show is by referral.
Okay.
Well, obviously
you're screwed.
Yeah.
You're screwed because I've got so many people I want to send your way.
There was, there's obviously some people that, we cold called and sent messages to just because we're like, take a shot in the dark. But, that's one of the great things about the history community is like, once you start talking to one person, they're like, oh, I know this person and I think they'd be cool. And it's a domino effect. So
that's happened to me so many different times when I want to dive into a subject. And the first time it really happened, it hit me like a ton of bricks. But you guys probably aren't familiar, but there was, I should say, a B-29 bomber actually just after World War II that crashed up in Greenland, northern Greenland.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. The Keybird.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I got very excited about that.
And I've done some videos about it.
The Nova documentary about that.
100%.
You're going to laugh at this. I also had a VHS of the Nova
Yeah.
documentary about the Keybird.
Yeah. Matter of fact, hold on a second here. So Carl Hoffman wrote. See, my camera's backwards. For some reason, my camera's flipped back for, So Carl Hoffman wrote the book Hunting Warbirds. Okay. And I want to hold this in front because you can't hear me. But so Carl Hoffman wrote this book. And I wanted to learn more about the Keybird. You saw the Nova documentary. I don't know if Jack, did you see it? Do you know what we're talking about?
No.
I'll send you some of Ken's videos about
Yeah.
it. It's really interesting.
Oh, did you see some of my videos about it?
I saw some of the shorts that you had about it.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So, but you saw the Nova documentary. You said you had the VHS. Okay. I wanted to learn more about the Keybird. And if you look around YouTube, you realize there really isn't anything other than the Nova documentary. And Nova documentaries are only 50, 55 minutes long. And you read a book like this and you realize there's so much more to the story. So I decided I start my YouTube channel. I don't know. I've got maybe 800 subscribers. I don't know what I'm doing. And I just decide I'm going to send an email to Carl Hoffman, who wrote the book. And oh no, I'm sorry. I need to back up. So I created a couple of videos about the Keybird, and when you just get started, you're hyper focused on every little comment that people make. Some people will say it's like that guy just has a face for audio. He shouldn't, only his mother could love that bald head, all this stuff. So you get all these comments, and you got to take them with a grain of salt and go to bed crying and all that stuff.
Sounds like you got some stuff you need to work out in therapy.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh. It's just, that's my cat even, looks at me and it's like, I don't know what you're talking about. But so I create a couple of videos about the Keybird, and I get this comment about, hey, well, it was really dusty back there, and that's how the fire started. I would know, I'm the one that was back there. And I just get chills up my spine. It's like, well, there's only one person that could be, Bob Vanderveen. And lo and behold, it's Bob Vanderveen commenting on my videos. And I immediately sent him a note. It's like, I need to talk to you. And so he allowed me to interview him. And then after that, I contacted Carl Hoffman. Carl Hoffman says, sure, that's the first book I ever wrote. Yeah, I'll talk to you. And then Carl said, well, the guy you should talk to is Vernon Rich. And if you watch the documentary, Vernon Rich is the one that was leaking the propane out of the tire, and it's like, don't light any matches, don't light a cigarette.
Right.
That you remember that guy?
Yeah.
So then Vernon, and I talked to him for hours, and then Vernon says, well, if you want to learn more, you should talk to Mark Jackson. And then Mark Jackson says, well, you want to learn more, and it snowballs. And that's the one thing I learned about, you started this podcast out of a passion for, the podcast you listened to was defunct or it went out and everything, and you picked up the ball. You started this podcast. Well, that's what I started this channel, and you quickly learn that people want to talk about this stuff as long as they recognize that you're passionate about it and you're not trying to make fun of them or anything like that. Once they figure out, hey, this guy's legit, then they refer you to somebody else, and then they refer you to somebody else. So you did these cold calls for people you want to have on your show, and then lo and behold, they have a good time on your show. And like me, I say, I got so many guys like Park Stevenson. He's been down to the Titanic so many different times, deep ocean explorer. He happens to be like a huge movie buff. He dresses up in all kinds of Star Wars characters, everything like that. Same with Tim Nesmith from the USS Kid.
Never on the Ocean Gate though, right?
What's that?
Said he was never on the Ocean Gate though, right?
No, but God, did CNN and everybody was trying to interview him about that. I sent him a text. It's like, are you getting inundated with interview requests? And he said, fuck yes, I'm not doing them. Because he's the expert on the Titanic.
I was going to say, it didn't stop James Cameron, but
what's that?
It didn't stop James Cameron.
Well, he was the advisor for Titanic. Parks was.
Okay.
with James Cameron, but no, he didn't stop him. He tried to make it as historically accurate, anyway. So Parks, I'd love to have, I know Parks would love to be on your show. I know Tim, Shane, John Epp from the USS Slater, all these guys, since you guys are as passionate about war movies as they are, they would love to. So that's how all this stuff gets started. And so when you say you cold call a few people and then you get these referrals, that's exactly what happened with me in the beginning with the Keybird. Is you talk to one person, it's like, all right, that History X guy, he's not an idiot, he's kind of legit. I'll give you the phone number of somebody else, till it got to the point where I got the phone number of the daughter of the mechanic that died.
Really?
You remember that?
Yeah.
You remember Rick Kriege, who died with the blood clot, after that first season?
Yeah.
So then I got the phone number of his daughter and I interviewed her. And 30 years later, she's still pissed about this whole thing. Rightly so, right? And then I realized you got to be careful. You're playing with people's lives, their memories. And that's when I really I was so jazzed. I was so excited. And then I realized, got to be careful sometimes, and I had to take a step back. So I have hours and hours and hours of interviews with these people that were there on that expedition, and I haven't done a damn thing with them because I'm still kind of rocked about that conversation I had with Haley, the daughter of Rick Kriege, the mechanic that died.
Right.
Anyway, sorry to bring the conversation down.
We had a moment like that a couple of weeks ago. We reviewed the movie The Outpost, which is about
The Outpost. That's
Cop Keating in Afghanistan.
Yeah, Afghanistan.
And there was 2 Medal of Honor recipients from that battle, Clinton Romachet and Ty Carter. And when we were talking about the movie, we're just doing our normal review. And in the review of The Outpost, in that movie, they portray Ty Carter as like this kind of shitbags, and he has like a redemption arc type deal. And, when we were talking about it, I was like, I watched some interviews with him, and he didn't seem like all that terrible of a person. So I was just positing. I'm like, I'm curious, like how much of that is played up. And like 2 days after we released the episode, on our Instagram page, Ty Carter himself liked our post. I was like, holy shit, I'm glad I didn't say anything.
Well, I mean, okay, sure, you're glad you didn't say anything, but how did you feel when all of a sudden you realized he's commenting on your podcast?
I was like, holy shit, I was not expecting, because I didn't tag him or anything. I just, I did our normal like, hey, new episode is out post. And, 2 days later, I see it pop up as Ty Carter MOH official likes your post. I'm like, what the fuck? Like,
makes you want to do more, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it really does. And, it's interesting, even talking to you about the Keybird, it kind of makes me think I need to revisit all these interviews that I have. And, maybe that would be something that people would be interested in learning about for 2024, because these guys are dying. Like the pilot of that Caribou plane that kept breaking down. You remember that?
Yeah. And weird side tangent. I follow a lot of just aviation pages in general.
Sure.
And there was one page, I forgot which one it was, but they did like a congratulations post for this dude who just got certified to be a command pilot for a Caribou. And they're like, he's the youngest, pilot alive who's certified to fly this airplane. And he's like 45 years old. It's like, oh, this is going to be a kind of a lost skill, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, I tried to, Caribous, they obviously don't make them anymore. And Jack doesn't know what the hell we're talking about, but I tried to track that Caribou that was used for that expedition. Turns out it was destroyed in Florida. It was chopped up just because it wasn't flyable anymore. Yeah. But I have interviewed the pilot from that expedition. He lives down in Texas, and he's in his 90s now. My point being, these guys aren't going to be around anymore. And so if you want to learn more about these subjects and the information's not out there, Armchair Commanders is going to be huge. and you're going to get a larger and larger audience, a larger and larger influence, and therefore you'll have clout that you can throw out there. So if you want to talk to somebody, what are you laughing at?
We're all about clout on this podcast.
Yeah, clout chasing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Continue.
but yeah, if you want to talk to somebody, if there's someone you want to talk to, you're going to have a platform to do it. You're going to be able to.
Well, it's like we had one of the actors from Band of Brothers on here, Matthew.
Who you did?
Yeah, we had.
How did I miss that?
We had Matthew
Albert.
Leach. He played Floyd Talbert,
the guy who gets bayoneted in one of the early episodes by his own soldier.
Oh, and they do the poem about him, the Night of the Bayonet. Yep. Yeah. Wait, you had him on?
Yeah. We did.
How did I miss that?
We did Generation War with him, but he himself also has a podcast. It's We Happy Few podcast.
What's it called?
The We Happy Few podcast.
We Happy
like the video game.
Few?
Yep, We WEH.
I'm not gonna know.
I'll send it to you.
Please do. Please do.
So he does a lot of he does similar where it's like war media. He also talks about the series and interviews other actors who were on that series.
He does.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we had him on, and I remember the funniest moment is, and this is to transition into our next little bit. We were talking about our drink choices, and one of our running jokes here is my favorite drink that I usually get is either Sailor Jerry's rum, because are you familiar with Sailor Jerry?
So I'm not.
So he was one of the pioneers of the American traditional tattoo style, which is all of my tattoos are in that style. So if you think of like the old school 1940s bold line tattoos, he's the one. He was one of the early pioneers of that style, and they named a rum brand after him.
Okay.
But he was in the Navy himself, and he had a tattoo shop in Hawaii. So like literally, if you think about any sailor who got a tattoo in Hawaii from like 1945 to 1970, they probably got it from Sailor Jerry.
That's great. That's great.
So I either drink that because I'm like, oh, it's a great little history themed drink, or there's a local beer company here in Denver that makes a beer. It's a raspberry Kolsch beer, but it's called Princess Yum Yum.
And I was drinking Berry Noir, which is one of my favorite beers of all time. It's a sour ale flavored with mixed berries. It's like 3 of my favorite things right in one can.
But so
paradise in a can, right?
Yeah.
So we're sharing our, he goes first and he's drinking some sort. I think he was drinking wine or an ale or something. And I bring up my drink choice, and
the look of English disgust on his face.
I'm like, yeah, I'm drinking Princess Yum Yum, and you could just see it on his face. Like, if I was in the same room as you, I would be kicking you in the head. Like,
and
this is in the episode.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I got to check this out.
He literally says that. He's like, man, if you're in England, you get the shit kicked out of you for ordering something like that.
But is he an English actor?
Yep.
Oh yeah,
very British.
But he was in wait, just so I'm clear. But he was in Band of
Brothers.
Yep.
A lot of supposedly American soldiers in that were played by British actors.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I know, right? It's so unfair that they can do our accents so perfectly and we can't do theirs.
Yeah, yeah. That's like that Christian Bale. Him and his ability to do an American accent is crazy.
I had no idea
but that
Hugh
that
Laurie
brings
was British either.
Right.
Wait. What about Hugh Laurie?
Hugh Laurie's British.
But Yeah, like for all of the seasons of House, I didn't know that.
He is?
Yeah.
He is.
He's also a pretty decent musician too.
My favorite,
Wow.
actually,
Jack's dropping the facts. I did not know.
he's actually
Wow.
he has a pretty good, it's either blues or jazz, but he has a blues or jazz album that's actually very solid.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
but to transition into our next little segment, our drinks for the day. Ken, obviously, I had let you know about this, but because we're doing it earlier in the day, our drink choices have changed. But
And I need to tell your listeners, okay, normally these guys would do this podcast in the evening. I'm the one that screwed up the schedule.
We forgive
Okay.
you.
Yeah, because tonight's football night and well, anyway. So normally when John sent me the email, apparently you guys do these things on Saturday evenings. Is that
Or
right?
Sundays.
Saturday or Sunday evenings, yeah.
Okay. And so I shook things up and John was nice enough to accommodate me. So we're doing this Central Time. We started at 11 a.m.
So 10 a.m. my time.
And oh, that's right, because you're Mountain.
Yep.
Okay, good point. Good point. But so and I'm interrupting to make this point. So I made a latte. I've got, my latte here. I don't know if Jack actually mentioned what he's drinking, but before you started recording, then John, what do you got going on over there?
So
And
our
I was shocked. Go ahead.
So our last submarine movie, obviously, we had Greg, who on Instagram he goes by DBF enthusiast. He works at the Independence Seaport Museum.
Yeah, great episode, by the way.
And
I
so
love that movie.
he told us about what World War II sailors used to do, because torpedoes used to be the fuel system was an alcohol based fuel. And so he said, "Oh, they would mix the fuel from these torpedoes with Tang, and they would call it torpedo juice." And so I was like, "Okay, we're doing a submarine movie. I have a very specific historical drink that I can try." So me, 10 a.m. on a fucking Saturday morning, I was like, you know what? Let's try it. Well, I don't obviously have torpedo fuel available to me, so I was
You don't?
no,
Weirdo.
shockingly. So I was like, what has got to be the closest commercially available alcohol that I can get that would replicate this? And anybody who's been a 19 or 20-year-old who's illegally drank knows that the strongest alcohol in the world is Everclear. So, which I haven't had since college. So, and mind you, I bought it I went out this morning, got went and bought a coffee, and then I went to the liquor store at 9:30 in the fucking morning to buy a bottle of Everclear, looking like the most well put together alcoholic there ever was. And I got a look from the clerk too, because you could tell that people who buy Everclear at 9 in the morning from him do not look like I do.
They're not role models.
No. So
well, wait, are you saying you dress like a role model right now? Is that what you're saying?
He's my role model.
I look like a normal everyday guy, but so yes, in my glass I have fucking Everclear and Tang, and Ken, you can attest to this. When I took my first pull of it this morning, I was like,
So before John hit record, I did something very similar during the pandemic, at the start of the pandemic. Because that's kind of like when I started the YouTube channel, and I thought I was going to make an episode about it. Turns out it's just like, it's not that interesting. But he's right. The torpedoes were fueled by I think 180 proof denatured alcohol, if I'm not mistaken. Someone's going to have to correct me on that. I don't think anyway, it's off the charts. And so Everclear 151, whatever. I decided I'm going to make torpedo juice. Now, as I understood it, the sailors the submariners during World War II, they did like grapefruit juice, because Tang hadn't been invented until, the astronauts. So in the 60s. But yeah, so they would do grapefruit juice. And so I was all right. I don't really like grapefruit juice. Matter of fact, come to think of it, I don't even like 151, but for some reason it seemed like a good idea. And so I mixed them together. I think I did 50-50, which was mistake number 4 probably in this whole evening. And I realized it's like, whoa, way too strong. But I've got all this grapefruit juice and I've got this Everclear. I can't let it go to waste. So I basically kept drinking it throughout the whole evening. And I know how I felt the next morning. Hell, I know how I felt after 20 minutes. Now, I'm sure you're going to edit the hell out of this, and we've been talking for close to 2 hours. So my question to you, John, is this: how do you feel now?
I'm going to take a nap after this, is how I feel. And mind you, I just have a standard rocks glass.
Yeah.
And I've been topping, as I've been drinking it down, I've been topping it off with more juice to cut.
Oh, you have
to cut it. But I did what you did, which was I did 50-50. I'm like, God, this is a terrible choice.
I'm not man enough to do that. I thought I was. Turns out I'm not. If we were doing this in the evening, I would have probably a couple of old fashions lined up. I'm actually a wine guy. Love wine. And when I was kicking around the idea of doing a YouTube channel, I had a couple different ideas. I did a wine YouTube thing. It turns out I like wine, but I'm not super passionate about wine. I don't have the palate. I'm not an aficionado or anything like that, but I really enjoy it. So I'd probably have a couple of old fashions. And what about Jack?
I'm doing dry January, so no booze for me. I'm drinking fruit punch, and I had a Mountain Dew earlier.
Typical sailor's diet, Mountain Dew.
Just delectable. Scurvy's no joke. You got to fight against it. I'm pretty sure it says vitamin C in it somewhere.
Well, I'm hoping that, and I'll, unless you block me, I'll start sending you a ton of emails about what episode are we going to do next.
Oh, we'd love to have you back.
Because as you know, I've got a list of movies, but I would love to do it in the evening. And yeah, I'd have the drinks lined up, and then it would be it's like, oh, he totally could have jumped that motorcycle over the barbed wire. Absolutely.
Just need to drop the clutch.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I'm going to go out and try it now. So
yeah. I dare you.
That'd be fantastic. So yeah, next time when we do it in the evening, we would we do a proper Armchair Commanders episode.
So I'm proud of myself. Well, almost proud of myself for not mentioning it almost 2 hours into the podcast, but the whole scene where they're securing the sub and firing off those automatic weapons inside the submarine, they somehow don't lose their hearing. That part made my ears hurt.
Yeah,
I actually here's a little science tangent that I wanted to go on, and I don't know if you were going to mention this, Ken, but
go ahead.
Are you familiar with a guy named Colonel Grossman?
No.
That name no. I'm just going to say no for the sake of time, okay. But so I want to say that name rings a bell.
So Colonel Grossman, he was with the United States military. I'm surprised I've only gotten that tongue-tied up to this point. But so his big thing is he's a psychologist, and he's written 2 very popular books. One is called On Killing, and the other one is called On Combat. And literally his entire area of specialty, or his forte, is examining how the human brain reacts to these high stress situations, such as, combat, taking a life, or what have you. And one of his big things is teaching and talking about like stress inoculation, where it's like, you take firemen, they practice they're called burn towers. They're buildings that can be set on fire time after time after time so that firefighters can get experience putting out fires and be exposed to the stress of being in a room engulfed in flames, so that, when they're out in the real world, air quotes, and they go to their first house fire or whatever, they're just like, it's a Tuesday, whatever. But one of the other things he talks about is the human reaction, like stress reactions to certain situations. And one thing that I've found very interesting is this theory called auditory exclusion. So basically, the idea of it is, Jack, you mentioned, man, how are they not deaf from firing machine guns from inside of a submarine in that closed space? And the idea of auditory exclusion is basically your body is so stressed out and in a survival mode that basically your body won't even register those noises. And when it's over, it's like, it's like if you were to go out hunting or something and you fire off a rifle, you get the like ringing in your ears or whatever. The idea of auditory exclusion is that ringing wouldn't exist because your body was in such a heightened stress mode that it's just like, nope, we're cutting these like X, Y, and Z issues out so you can just function.
You're saying the, or possibly the adrenaline that would be associated with whatever, the reaction is to what's going on, kind of shuts out certain sensors or
Yeah.
In your body, and that's why that. Yeah, all right. I mean, I can't argue with that, maybe, but you still can't ignore the fact that there is I mean, you can't get past physics,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
You you can't get past physics. And I'm no weapons expert, but if you're firing multiple submachine gun shots, forget about the grenades. Because the grenades that they threw in, apparently, the Americans were outside the hatch, the Germans were inside the hatch. So grenade, obviously, but even those bullets, would have a certain concussion effect. And I would think blasted eardrums. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
I think Jack makes a good point. It's like, how were they still able to hear? But
I don't think
hey,
auditory
man,
exclusion would necessarily work in the premise of this movie, but it is a thing that's been explored in other like combat settings though.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, yeah. I I thought I had another one written down, kind of along the lines of what Jack was talking about. Well, I mentioned talking about like the equalizing valves and all that stuff, creating that noise. That would have been a god awful screech, but
I'm shocked. Like, I get it. The people who rated this sub are also submariners. Um,
yeah,
but
I learned, do not use the term submariner.
Why?
Do
Why
not.
not? Is that taboo?
I always thought it was submariner.
Me too.
Submariner, that sounds so screwy. But in interviewing someone, it was Park Stevenson, I think it was, and he actually, after graduating from the Naval Academy, he actually, served on a submarine, if I'm not mistaken. And I think I asked him once because he was being nice to me, and I used the term submariner, and he kept saying submariner, and he stressed it. I finally asked him, I said, "What is the right term?" And he said, "When you say submariner, you're saying they are a subpar mariner."
Ah,
And I'm going, oh, versus submariner.
one who submarines.
Yeah, you're serving on a submarine. You are a submariner. And I'm going, okay, I am never making that mistake again. Anyway, go ahead.
I get it that the people who are raiding this U-boat are also submarine crew members. But like,
Yes.
having read like autobiographies and just other historical books about submarines, like these are some of the most complex pieces of machinery and equipment you will ever see in your life. And it's like you mentioned, you've toured a U-boat. I've seen the USS Pampanito out in San Francisco, and it's just mind-boggling all of the stuff that they have in there. It truly is like when you're like, oh, this has like 40 or 50 dudes on this boat. You're like, yeah, they need every bit of these guys to make this function. So I think that's one of the big things that kind of kills me about this movie is the idea that these 5 or 6 guys hop into a submarine and they have like 2 guys who speak German. They're like, okay, this is this valve, this is this valve, this is this valve. And suddenly they can operate it perfectly as if it was their own sub. And I'm like, no, guys, no. Like, I mean, for God's sake, the Germans had a toilet so fucking complex that it sunk one of their own boats. Like, let's not pretend like these allied sailors are just going to pick up operating a U-boat like off the top of their head.
I mean, with death on the line, you learn right fucking quick. You best.
Did you see that message across the top?
Yeah, you're back. Occasionally it'll do that, but
wait, have I been fading out?
No, that's the only time it happened for you.
Oh, okay.
As long as I see you on the screen, basically what it'll do is when we get into these longer recordings, it occasionally drops and picks you back up, and basically it like segments it. So we're good.
Well,
we're good.
I apologize. Yeah, that's probably my fault because I keep asking you guys questions, and that's probably not what you're used to. So no, I'm the one that's been dragging it out. So I apologize.
No, we dig it.
Yeah. So, but I've really enjoyed being on here. It's been a lot of fun. When do we get to rate? First of all, what's going to be our rating system, and are we going with how many torpedoes we like the movie?
I mean, we can, unless there's something that really stuck out to you in this film that's kind of silly. Previous ratings have been kind of off the wall, such as
how many eggs?
Oh my god!
I thought
how many
stupid scene.
So
how
dumb.
Many cracked eggs? Man, you're just wasting food.
Yeah, how many?
Yeah, like everyone on that sub already knows what pressure does to a sub. That's like day one submarine.
But they had to explain it to the movie audience. Right. So, Mazzola, you will be eating powdered eggs from here on
asshole. Out. I was going to eat that.
I was going to cook with that. Let's see. If it's not going to be torpedoes, how many?
I like that. How many crushed eggs?
How many? Yeah, for those of you that haven't seen U-571, you'll see they make not only one egg reference but 2 in the beginning. Remember when the cook says, "Oh man, pick up the eggs with both hands."
Oh.
It's like that poor actor. They gave him the worst lines.
Yeah.
Look, I love the movie, but I also love shooting holes in it too. Yeah. And there's plenty of holes to be shot. But it's a great movie. Anyway,
1 to 5. I think cracked eggs.
I'm gonna guess Jack. I'm gonna guess Jack's gonna give it a 2.
I was gonna be generous because I will admit the movie's slightly better than I remember it watching it in 7th grade history. I was also gonna tell you about Mr. Becker's history class because you asked about that in the last episode, John.
But, yes, we had mentioned that this is where he first saw it, so.
To be curt with my ratings, I'll give it a 2.5. Like 2 cracked eggs.
Oh, we can do decimals?
2 cracked eggs, but one of them does that thing where you try to crack an egg, you're a bit too forceful and get a lot of egg bits in the egg that you're trying to cook with. Happens to all of us, really. But anyway, so Mr. Becker's history class. Wait, no, this wasn't 7th grade. This was freshman year of high school. I get the 2 confused. But a lot of our curriculum was watching movies. Like, we watched this movie. We watched Schindler's List. We watched... Yeah, I know, heavy shit. We also watched Saving Private Ryan. All of these were in the same unit, mind you, our World War II section. We watched...
This sounds like a great history.
We watched 75 to 80% of the Ken Burns documentary on the 50s. That was actually really fascinating. I loved that part.
Ken Burns does great stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Great stuff.
It's an investment, though. Like, what, 10 hours?
Each one, yeah.
But
like that one he did on the national parks. I don't know if you guys saw that one. But fascinating.
Obviously... it's hard to, the masterpiece that everybody references, which is his Civil War series. But
See,
I really loved his baseball documentary.
Never saw it, but I'll check that
I'm
out.
aware of the meme. Go ahead, John.
Oh, I was going to say it's just the beginning and early days of American baseball, but continue, Jack.
I'm well aware of the meme that he inadvertently spawned from the Civil War series, where it's like, I think it's called Ken Burns movie making, where it's just super close up shots of historical figures, and sometimes it pans to give movement.
I shit you not, on the iMovie Maker, that is a listed effect. So if you go onto your iPhone and do like iMovie, you can literally push a button that says Ken Burns mode, and it will do that effect on whatever your video is.
Well, that's how I edit most of my videos. I use iMovie. And I know exactly what you're talking about. It's the Ken Burns effect, because a lot of these photos and everything, you got to zoom in. Yeah, it's the Ken Burns effect on iMovie.
Ooh, and another thing about Mr. Becker's history class, one of the bitches of the class, she was so fucking annoying, but
I want names.
I'm not gonna name names on here on like the maybe 1% chance that she has it, but she kind of had a bitchy first name. That's all I'm gonna say. But
Becky,
John will
it's
edit
Becky,
it out.
isn't it?
So John, promise me you'll edit this out. But
yeah, I'll put a bleep. I'll put a bleep in.
Her name was
What?
Yeah, I know, but anyway, so
yeah, it sounds like
when it came time for the finals for that class, she got a 95%, and she was like all full of herself, like, yeah, I probably got the highest score in the class. And then Mr. Becker, not even looking up, well, you got to try harder to beat Jack's score. He got a perfect score. I'm like, haha, suck at sit and spin. But anyway,
this sounds like I never had a class like this before. We watched movies all day.
We also watched Pleasantville for our unit on the 50s. Anybody? Pleasantville?
No.
So it stars Tobey Maguire in one of his early roles, and it involves a kid who's obsessed with this
getting bitten by a radioactive spider, or
no, shut up. He's obsessed with this one sitcom from the 50s, and it's
I've seen this. I know what. I've seen this.
Him and his bitch sister get transported into the universe of that show.
They get sucked in somehow. Yeah,
and she starts changing things, and it's all about conformity.
And everything's like in those pastel colors. Then
right?
And
it starts out black and white and very rigid.
Yes,
but then it gets color the more she teaches them about breaking the mold.
Saw that. Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time, but I saw that.
You remember that scene where she teaches the mom about masturbation?
I think I would have remembered that.
No, this seriously happens. Like, she teaches the mom about masturbation in that universe, and the mom tries it and blows her own fucking mind. And for whatever reason, the tree outside catches on fire. And during that scene, Mr. Becker stands up and says, I gotta go make some copies, and then leaves the room for that scene. And whenever there was a scene like that,
your teacher made his getaway.
Yeah, whenever there was a sex scene in one of our movies or something problematic, that's what he would do. He would just boogie. And that scene in fucking Schindler's List, which, by the way, if we ever review that again, I vowed to never watch that movie again, but I might make an exception. Whatever. But
well, that's like my wife is she is proud. I shouldn't say proud, but she's made a point of it so she hasn't seen Schindler's List. And she refuses to see it at this point because she loves how mad it makes people hearing that.
It just makes me depressed.
Because there's like a family member that's like, this is the greatest movie of all time. You have to watch it. It's like, no, I'm good. Just, she does it purposely now just to piss people off.
I have a movie like that. Matter of fact, my girlfriend just did this a few weeks ago. Pissed me off. She's so stubborn about it. pissed me off. But Schindler's List, fantastic movie. I've watched it many times, and enjoy it for so many different reasons. It's probably sinful to use the word enjoy, but appreciate it for so many different reasons. Okay, just a fantastic movie. Liam Neeson, all that stuff. And of course, it introduces Ralph Fiennes to the world.
He did an amazing job.
Fuck. Incredible job. But I think the part you're going to talk about is the blonde. They have the blonde. She's like topless or something.
Yeah,
like
that's
that.
what I was going to bring up. Like that scene, that's the establishing shot where that fucking asshole like picks up a sniper, does some stretches, and just casually shoots some Jews for fun, and then it cuts to her with her tits out.
Yeah,
and the aforementioned girl who was the bitch of the class was like, "Oh, you need to turn this off." What? Yeah, blah, blah, blah. She apparently called him a rat, but I don't
called who a rat.
Yeah, I don't remember that for showing tits. In
the in the movie, yes, yeah, something like that.
It's art.
Yeah,
is it black and white?
Yeah,
it's obviously art if it's in black and white.
Yeah, well, so that happened to me a couple of weeks ago, where so my girlfriend, how did that work? Every year I watch the movie Love Actually.
Okay.
Best Christmas movie ever. Jack's
I've
laughing.
never seen it.
What about you, John? Have you seen Love Actually?
I don't.
Hugh Grant, Liam Neeson, Billy Bob Thornton.
I don't think so, but I totally get the like having a list of films that you watch every year.
Yeah, if you haven't seen Love Actually, you got to watch it. It's got a bunch of huge names. It's got the guy from Walking Dead that plays Rick Grimes, Lincoln, whatever the hell. It's got a lot of big names. Like I said, Liam Neeson, Billy Bob Thornton. Fantastic Christmas movie. She dug her heels in. Talk about stubborn. I even sent her just like a 2-minute segment from YouTube. You know, you got to watch the scene. You know, Hugh Grant, he plays the prime minister. Billy Bob Thornton's the president, and they're, nope, not watching it. So then here's your family member. Who was it that refused to watch Schindler's List? Oh no, it's your wife. Your wife.
I don't feel as strongly about Schindler's List, but it's just annoying that she uses it to piss people off.
It is because first of all, everyone talks about Schindler's List. It's a historically significant film. You know, if you look at my videos on History X, you'll notice I do not do anything about the Holocaust because it's a subject that I don't like to touch. But I feel everyone should see Schindler's List. And then here's your wife. No, I'm good. I'd rather watch Up Periscope or Down Periscope or whatever that movie is.
The lesser known sequel.
Yeah.
Now, it's funny.
I'm starting to like Jack's not so bad. You know,
I'm an acquired
Jack's
taste.
Jack's like Hall in Band of Brothers. You know, all of a sudden Hall goes, up yours, Garnier, and goes, I like this kid. Yeah. Don't you remember Hall in the beginning?
Was he the one that got himself shot because he wanted that Luger?
No, he's the one.
No. That was Hubler.
He got grenaded in like the second episode.
Yeah, so Hall was the one that Damian Lewis came across in the beginning, because he was from Able Company and Winters was from Easy Company. So Hall was the first one that he came across, and he's walking around, and Hall goes, "Sir, do you have a weapon?" You probably don't.
Yeah, no.
Jack doesn't know.
This is the same scene where he's like, "We're lost, aren't we?" He's like, "No, we're not lost. We're in Normandy."
We're in Normandy. Yeah.
Oh, that guy.
So
fun fact.
And Garnier hated his guts because he wasn't from Easy Company. Right. And then Hall started talking back to him, and Garnier goes, "Yeah, I like this guy." So you're my Hall. I don't really like Jack. Yeah. I feel Jack hasn't really brought anything to the podcast in any way, shape, or form. And now it's like, all right, the unknown sequel for Down Periscope or Up Periscope.
Just not holding back there.
Damn, tell me how you really feel.
Hey, No, you guys have been a blast. Fantastic.
So,
Um,
so Ken, what's your egg rating for this film?
oh, that's right.
Fuck,
We're
we got
supposed to be
way off
rating this movie, right?
topic.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go 4 cracked eggs out of 5.
All right.
And the reason I won't go 5 is because of I'm okay with the inaccuracies. As I said in the beginning, I feel the story needed to be told for so many different reasons, whether it's teach people about the Enigma, just get people off the street that aren't interested in World War II to even just watch the movie. So I think there's value to that. But I think there are other movies that do an even better job of that, like Saving Private Ryan. And I don't think that you can put U-571 and Saving Private Ryan on the same shelf.
I think you got an
So
issue
that's
if you
why I
do.
give it. I think you do too, because you're either diminishing Saving Private Ryan or you're elevating U-571. And I'm purely going at it from getting people off the street. I don't think Schindler's List is the kind of movie that brings people off the street to learn more about World War II, no matter if it's got Liam Neeson in it or not, no matter if it's got topless women in it or not. It's still about the Holocaust, right? But Saving Private Ryan, U-571, Greyhound, Memphis Belle. I feel those are all movies that get people to watch about or learn more about World War II. But I just think it can't be on the same level as Saving Private Ryan. So I'll give it 4 out of 5.
So, oh, go ahead.
I still have to get my egg rating, Jack. Hold
I
on.
feel like we're forgetting something. Do you guys know what?
What?
I think we're forgetting someone, but I can't put my finger on it.
So I want to, for my egg rating, I want to split the difference between you guys because I think ultimately to rate this film, it comes down, like we've talked a lot about it, which is how do you want to look at this film? You know, if we're looking at this as being history forward and historically accurate, it it obviously is on the lower end. If we're looking at it solely as an action film, it perfectly fits the bill for what an action film needs to be. And
Agreed.
I think I think and we've used this descriptor quite a few times, which I don't know if you've listened to an episode where we've used this descriptor before, but I think this falls into the pork chop movie metric, which is, and I knew that this was a pork chop movie when Jack texted me yesterday before he went to go watch it, because he got off work and he called me, but he's like, yeah, I'm just going to swing by the grocery store and get myself a big steak and cook it, and I'm going to watch this movie. And the pork chop metric, it comes from the podcast that I originally inspired me to do this, where you use it as it's not necessarily a good movie, it's not a bad movie, but it is a movie that you enjoy. And I find myself in that position where I enjoy this movie because I like sub movies, I like World War II movies. It's a fun action film. History issues aside, tropes aside, it's a movie that I enjoy. And like Jack did yesterday, where he cooked himself a nice steak and sat down and
Mm.
watched this movie, that's what I would do with this. I have the house to myself. I'm going to put this movie on and I'm going to have a glass
Yeah.
of whiskey and cook myself a chunk of meat. So
Mm-hmm.
for that, I give it 3 cracked eggs. It's not good. It's not fantastic, but it's not bad,
I'm insulted. So wait, so Jack gave it, what did you give it, Jack?
2.5 cracked
3.5?
eggs, but 2 cracked eggs, and one of them has the eggshell still in it.
Oh,
when he's
that's
trying
right.
to
That's
cook
right.
it.
That's right. Yeah. So you only gave it 3, man, and you're a submarine guy. You're a
We
submarine
both are.
movie
We
guy,
love
and you only gave it
submarines.
3.
It's
Oh, Jack, I apologize, Jack. I didn't know you were a submarine movie fan too. I didn't know
it's
that.
one of those things that's like, yeah, I like this movie and I enjoyed it. But if you think about other submarine movies that exists, such as Run Silent, Run Deep, Das Boot, The Hunt for Red October, it I enjoy it, but it doesn't even come up to the tier of those submarine films either, I think.
No kidding. No kidding. You would rank U-571 below Hunt for Red October.
Granted, Hunt for Red October is trying to
It knew what
accomplish
it
something
was.
different. Yeah. I think I don't know. Maybe Hunt for Red October might be it. It's hard because Hunt for Red October is its own kind of little side diversion in the submarine genre. But if
Have you guys ever had anyone ask you, when it comes to Hunt for Red October, have you ever had anyone ask you, so when did this really happen?
not yet, thankfully.
You
No.
haven't? Oh. I was dating someone and she said, when did this happen? It's like, I think we're done.
Man, who knew that?
That was the end of that.
Who knew that Baldwin was an American hero like that? Like,
oh my god!
I didn't know
and then he
Sean
became
Connery
president.
defected from the Soviet Union.
So, but anyway, sorry to interrupt, John.
but
Go
yeah,
ahead.
so I think 3 is I enjoyed it, but there are still things that are left to be desired, I think.
You guys are a tough crowd. So, all right, like I said, I'm going to insist on coming back, and I'm going to obviously I'll pick a different movie.
You're gonna shit on the movies we love.
No. It's like trying to get someone close to you, like your wife, to watch Schindler's List, or my girlfriend to watch Love Actually. I'm going to try and get you guys to love, like I go back to my list. I had Where Eagles Dare, Von Ryan's Express, Great Escape, Memphis Belle, Greyhound. I'll get one that you guys will like.
That's fair. So, Jack,
Yeah.
what
are you doing tomorrow?
Well, we'll get to that. Jack, what does Rotten Tomatoes give this?
I'm glad you asked.
I forgot about that. Yeah, what does Rotten Tomatoes do?
So the tomometer for U-571 is at 68%, and the audience score is at 62%.
Oh, usually the audience goes higher.
Yeah, and I find myself agreeing more with the audience than I do with the critics. After the critics lied to me about The Last Jedi. But
what did they say about The Last Jedi?
They rated it higher than almost any other Star Wars movie. But when it came out, the audience viciously disagreed.
Wait a second. You had A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi.
Last Jedi
what was that?
Is in the third trilogy with Daisy Ridley.
The Return of the Jedi is what you're thinking of.
No. You had A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. Okay, Jabba the Hutt, all that stuff.
Then Phantom Menace.
But then
Attack of the Clones. Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah. Okay.
And then it was A New Hope. No.
Force Awakens.
Force Awakens. Then it was.
Well, but what John's doing is he's grouping it in as the movies were released. So you're saying in that third release of movies was The Last Jedi.
Yep, yes. It was the second one of the new trilogy.
Okay. You know what? You need to have Tim Nesmith on from the USS Kidd, the destroyer that's down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He is a Star Wars freak.
Hey, Star Wars are war movies. Like, it's literally in the name.
Well, and if you think about it, Star Wars, it's historically, I mean, because it happened a long time ago in the land far away.
How can we disprove it?
Yeah. So we were doing a video podcast that we do Museum Ship Mafia. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but I do it with these other museums, and we had Tim on, and we were talking about if we could do it, like, I forget how it came up, and I said, well, you could unearth a Star Destroyer on Tatooine. And he said, Jakku. I'm going, I don't even know what you're talking about.
It's one of the other desert planets, but
yeah. So obviously I got it wrong. There are no Star Destroyers on Tatooine, apparently, but Tim Nesmith, the supervisor of the USS Kidd, knew that.
You know what is, this film did generally get a decent critical reception, minus parliament, because this, believe it or not, this film won an Oscar.
It did?
Yeah, for sound editing.
Okay.
Oh.
Hey, an Oscar is an Oscar.
Yeah, well, take your victories.
It had to beat somebody else, right, to get sound editing. But when I look at images, like I like, because this was done a long time ago, and so when you talk about CGI, obviously,
For those at home, Ken brought up his PowerPoint, which props to you. You're the first
yeah.
one person we've ever had to have a PowerPoint ready for us.
Oh, well, I hope that's an indication to you guys how excited I was to jump on here, because I thought it'd be a lot of fun. Wait, not this one. But, I mean, when you talk about what went into making this movie, I thought it would have been when Jack, was that you that said it got an Oscar?
John.
I did, yeah.
One of you guys. I thought it would have been something for more like CGI.
Like set design or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Set design. Because when you look at stuff like this, I mean, obviously a lot of work went into the accuracy of the set.
You know what that reminds me of is, you're flipping through a few different photos,
Yeah.
cutscenes and whatnot. They built a giant model of a U-boat for this film, and it's like 50 or 60 feet long, and it still exists. A military surplus store in California owns it, and it's like out front of.
Really?
Yeah, it's like in their parking lot on display.
No
I will send
kidding.
you the link to a video of it. But
Uh-huh.
I'm like, man, if I ever hit the lottery, what's the first fucking thing I'm buying is a 60-foot long replica of a U-boat to put in my front yard. Like,
I've got the best fake U-boat story, and you guys may know this. Okay, so how much, I don't know how much you know about Das Boot when they were making Das Boot. Okay, but that was originally supposed to be an American production, and they talked about Rutger Hauer or maybe Robert Redford playing the captain, and all this stuff. Turns out it ended up with the German studio, and they made it, and it turned out to be one of the biggest German movie productions ever. So they got this U-boat, fake U-boat, obviously, that they're using to film Das Boot, right?
yeah.
And did you hear how it got stolen and who stole it?
No, I was not aware of that.
You didn't hear
No.
about this? So the production, the director and the actors, they show up, to the pier, to film some more. Where the hell's our U-boat? Where's our submarine? And
how do you lose a submarine?
How do you lose a submarine?
You leave the hatch open.
Yeah, from Hunt for Red October. Vasily, you lost another submarine. No, so it's like, what the hell happened to our submarine? Well, guess who stole it? Steven Spielberg. Why did he steal it?
I don't know what was he doing that he
Jack?
needed a U-boat for.
Well, obviously
Jack,
for the Enigma machine, right?
Nope.
Shit.
Nope. Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh my god.
Oh.
So Harrison Ford's got to climb on the submarine, right? Raiders of the Lost Ark. So yeah, apparently Steven Spielberg had a contract for the submarine, and he was either late or early, and it's like, all right, we're ready to film. There's our submarine. Let's go. And he took the submarine.
As you do.
Yeah. It's like, well, no one's using it, so I'm taking it.
I mean, we've all been there before.
I was going to say Grand Theft Auto got intense.
Oh, yeah. So I love little stories like that. I think that's great.
All right.
So all right. Well,
so Jack,
yes,
that's me.
I was gonna say you guys are probably hating me now because I keep asking you questions and dragging this out.
I was just going to say, Jack, it's about that time to announce our next film choice, which it's your turn, and I know you had texted me a little teaser of it, which is back-to-back sub films, baby.
Hell yeah.
What are we doing? What are
We're
you guys doing?
reviewing the movie Below.
Oh, I think I've seen
I
that.
Hey,
can't believe we are going to be reviewing how do you get Zach Galifianakis in a war film? How does that even work?
I don't know, asking his agent.
Is that on Netflix?
I don't know. But
Anyway,
No, I think it's Amazon Prime. But I have seen it.
I've never seen this
I don't
film,
remember.
so
I don't know. I was sold on the whole premise of a submarine horror movie,
it's like Aliens but submarine.
but submarines. And I love submarines, but even I have to admit they're all kind of the same. You know, they start off pretty strong, but then the whole thing goes under.
Mm-hmm.
Guess get it?
I-
Because
yep.
wow, tough
Yeah,
crowd.
very clever, Jack.
Hey,
Good for you, though.
do you know what the difference between a good submarine and a great submarine is?
The great submarines come back up from under the water.
That's right. A good submarine goes underwater. A great submarine comes back up.
Well, you guys are just cracking yourselves up,
we're
aren't
just
you?
regular comedians here.
Well, it's like that line in U-571. It's like, oh, she'll go right to the bottom if we don't stop her.
That was pretty funny. But also, I was going to mention this, but forgot that part near the end. What the fuck was it that Harvey Keitel said? It was like, sir, if you ever need a chief, I'll sail with you anytime.
Oh, yeah.
Fuck off, Top Gun.
Thank you, Chief.
Yeah, I will say I did love Harvey Keitel in this. I always love the like grizzled sergeant, or in this case it's the chief.
I'm really sad he is no longer making movies.
At least,
and I
can appreciate somebody.
I really
who,
enjoyed him.
Yeah, but I can appreciate somebody being like, "Hey, I'm calling it good," because it's like, take Michael Caine for example. He announced his retirement last year, and it's like, no, I love Michael Caine, but he's also in his 90s, and it's like, I respect the fact that he's like, I don't know how good of a performance I can give.
Harvey Keitel, didn't he go the same way? Didn't unfortunately same way as Dennis Hopper. Didn't they both have cancer? Correct? Am I right about that?
Maybe.
And yeah, I'll have to look that up because I don't want to say something that's incorrect. But I know Dennis Hopper, fantastic actor, but unfortunately, couldn't make movies anymore. Didn't have the strength. And I thought that's what happened with Harvey Keitel. If I'm wrong, Harvey, my apologies. But him in Pulp Fiction, no one better than Harvey Keitel as the Wolf.
Right. So
love that guy. So you guys are doing Below?
Yep.
That'll be our next one.
Okay.
So
what do you got coming up after that?
Braveheart, I think.
Oh yeah, that's right, Braveheart.
We have.
I thought you guys already did.
Possibly
we haven't done Braveheart yet, but one of our referrals is she is a big Scottish history person, so that was her choice, was Braveheart. So,
and Braveheart has the dubious honor of quite possibly being the most inaccurate historical film ever made.
Oh, come on. Not worse than Pearl Harbor.
No, I'm pretty sure it blows Pearl Harbor out of the water, pun intended.
Really? See, now again, that's the type of history I'm not familiar with. I don't know a lot about that.
It's a good thing we have a Scottish historian coming on, because I wouldn't know the difference.
The way
I'm looking forward to that episode. I'll make sure I'm going to post community tabs and on my internet, on my Instagram. Make sure people check it out.
The way it was described to me is, imagine watching a Revolutionary War movie, but everyone's wearing backwards business suits and they're using cars to get to and from battles.
Yeah. I mean, you could have just said they're using, M16s. You could have just said that they were using.
They use bow and arrows, right? In the Revolutionary War.
That makes me think of. Have you ever explored like alternate history on YouTube?
It's a dark rabbit hole.
So
I haven't. Are you talking about like Man in the High Castle
sort
stuff?
of, yeah. Um, there's quite a few channels. I'll set. I know I said this a lot. I will send you one big email of all the stuff I said I would send you. But
Send me little
okay,
emails. Don't little emails, because when you have a thought, send me an
yeah.
email. That's what I tell people to do.
There's a subsection of the history community on YouTube that they do alternate history where they're like, what if the Nazis won? What if we lost
Really?
the Cold War? All that kind of stuff. But it
Oh,
made me think there's an author who really kind of like got this started, and he started writing in the 80s and 90s, I think. But one of the books he wrote was, I think it was called Guns of the South or something. And the whole premise is that there's this time traveler who brings crates of AK-47s to the Confederacy. And it like changes the course of the war. And it is an awful, awful book. But I was like, oh my God, just, oh.
well, I that's not like Cowboys and Aliens, that movie. No, that's not like that. I enjoyed the movie Cowboys and Aliens because everyone thinks when the aliens invade, it's going to be present day. It's always going to be present day. It's always going to be New York City, skyscrapers, all this stuff. The aliens are going to invade. That's what. But I love the Cowboys and Aliens idea because you had, Daniel Craig and Harrison Ford. They're actually cowboys in the 1800s, and all of a sudden here are the aliens. And I always thought that was an interesting idea. But then what you're talking about is there's YouTube channels where they present this alternate history to World War II. Is that what I'm
Well,
hearing?
literally like any kind of subject, really. Or it's like,
Well, I love the AK-47s to the Indians or whatever that was. That's an interesting idea.
yeah. So
But there,
I have
there's
I'll send you a bunch of stuff.
oh, go
So
ahead, go ahead. I'll look forward to it. I'll look forward to it. I really enjoyed this today. It's been a lot of fun, and I think I can learn a lot from you guys for future stuff. Like I said, like I've always said, broken record kind of stuff. It's interesting to hear what other people's perspective is.
so I know you've talked a bit about the work you've done already, but I'd like to leave the floor to you to share any kind of social media accounts you got, your YouTube page, any kind of projects you got coming up that you want people to keep an eye out for. Have at it.
Yeah, man. The big things for me is the YouTube channel, History X. Started it 3 years ago, and it's 100,000 subscribers now. I couldn't be more proud. Couldn't be happier with my followers and viewers. They give me all kinds of great ideas. So if you want to check out History X and let me know what you want to see covered, I'd love to hear from you. You can always reach me, Ken at historyxchannel.com. Instagram page also for History X. The big thing I've got coming up, we had, like I said during the broadcast, we had Richie Kohler, one of the deep sea detectives from the History Channel, on. That was mid-December, talking about his exploration of the German submarine U-869 off the coast of New Jersey back in the 1990s. So he was fantastic as a guest. Of course, a huge honor to have him on. But I've been in the middle of editing that, so you're going to see those videos come out from that podcast, the video podcast we do with other museums, Museumship Mafia. So that'll be coming out, and then in March, I'm on a 10-day video project over in Pearl Harbor in March. So after that will be a lot of different videos coming from that, and this is all stuff that I love to do. So taking people behind the scenes of the historical aspects of World War II that a lot of people don't talk about, and love to have you as a subscriber. So check us out.
That is great. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for joining us, and thank you for so much for choosing this film. You have now you now hold the record. We have our longest episode now with you. So
What are we? We're at 2 hours and 45 minutes.
our
It's
previous
crazy.
record was 2.5 hours with the guys from the Civil Weird podcast. So
Yeah.
Well, okay. I hope that's not because you guys are like Canadian nice where you just like, well, we can't get this guy to shut
Oh
up,
no,
so we'll just kind of ride
you might
along
have
and
you
wait
might
for
have
him.
ascertained this, but we go on tangents all the time. So
Yeah. Oh, I mean, yeah, and I do it all the time. I love talking history. I love talking movies, and I hope you guys have me back. I hope you don't regret this, but yeah, I would love to come back and talk about something like, you know, Where Eagles Dare or Von Ryan's Express, something totally not based on a true story, and where we can really just like, oh, and you guys haven't seen Where Eagles Dare, I guess.
I
no,
haven't.
that sounds like we might
Shame.
have our next film chosen. But
Oh, well, it's like saying Die Hard or Lethal Weapon. Which one was the better Christmas movie?
Don't do this to us, man.
I mean, come on. Die Hard or Lethal Weapon? Which one was the better
Die
Christmas
Hard, at
movie?
least in my opinion.
Yeah, but in Lethal Weapon, they're going through the Christmas tree lot trying to catch the drug dealer guy.
Yeah, but
And
Bruce Willis.
in the beginning of Lethal Weapon, the girl jumps off the balcony to Frank Sinatra's Jingle Bell Rock. I mean, there's no better Christmas scene. I mean, what are
Well,
you
what
going to talk
about
about?
Bruce Willis killing that dude and like writing on his shirt, now I have a gun, ho ho ho.
Ho ho ho. Oh my god. So Park Stevenson, the director of the USS Kidd, that's what he wore that to he posted on his Facebook page. John, I'll send you the link. So Park Stevenson, who's been down to the Titanic with James Cameron, he was the advisor of the Titanic. He literally wore that sweatshirt to a Christmas party. Now I have a machine gun. Ho ho ho. So you're picking Lethal Weapon, huh? No. I'm sorry. You picked Die Hard.
Yeah, my vote's with Die Hard.
Alan Rickman. God
Yeah.
rest his soul.
I think I would go with Die Hard just because the entire setting of it is within a Christmas party. So like the whole reason they're there is because of a Christmas party. So
Good point. Yeah. So anyway, that's what Where Eagles Dare. Where Eagles Dare is set in a totally snowy scene. They filmed it in Bavaria, the Bavarian Alps. You know, so it's another opportunity to enjoy Christmas. If you're, you know, find yourself, you know, middle of the week during the holidays between Christmas and New Year's, you got nothing going on, you watch Where Eagles Dare with Clint Eastwood, and it's fantastic. Fantastic. They killed a bunch of cows, unfortunately, filming the movie, though. That was sad. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, I digress. Yeah, have me on again. We'll talk about Where Eagles Dare.
absolutely, we've loved having you. So Jack, do you have anything else before we leave?
I was going to mention this earlier when we were talking about Schindler's List, but there's a grand total of 2 movies that I've watched once and recommend to everybody, but vowed to never watch again, and that's Schindler's List and Grave of the Fireflies.
What was
Grave
the
of the Fireflies? Super depressing.
Grave of the Fireflies.
Yeah, animated Miyazaki film about a boy and his sister trying to survive World War II in Japan.
You want to see a depressing movie? Watch Sideways with Paul Giamatti.
I do like depressing things.
Or like coming, man. That's how we ended up doing. I can't. So obviously, I said Down Periscope is our most streamed episode.
That's crazy.
So Down Periscope was like episode number 3 for us. Our first two, the first review we ever did was for an animated film called Picadon. It's a grand total of 10 minutes long, and it's an animated film that covers the bombing of Hiroshima. And that is for a 10-minute long film, it's super heavy, super dark, and it's like, holy shit. So that's episode number 1. Episode number 2, we did Come and See.
What is that?
So Come and See is a film about Eastern Europe during World War II, and it follows this teenage boy who
Is he
he
even teenager? I thought he was like 13 or something. Well, kid.
this young man who he joins Belarusian like resistance fighters, gets separated from them, witnesses a whole bunch of atrocities, and then the film ends with him like getting relinked up with it. But it's really just, it was made during the time of the Soviet Union, um,
Okay.
but it really just highlights the horrors of war, and
Yeah, there's
it's
no
a
glory, there's no triumph. It's just the horrors of war.
and the big thing about Come and See is it, you start with this like very innocent young man, and you see him progressively get more and more traumatized throughout the film. So our first two episodes were these super heavy, super dark films that like
Yeah.
afterwards, like we were just drained after watching them and then talking about them. So by the time we got to episode 3, I was like, I need something fun and lighthearted. So that's how I did Down Periscope,
Down
because
Periscope.
I was like,
Yeah.
I need something completely different.
I like the fact that it's your most uploaded episode. But that movie you're talking about, that sounds almost like Empire of the Sun. Did you ever watch Empire of the
Not
Sun?
yet.
Christian Bale.
I have not, but I've heard of it.
One of it. Yeah, one of his first movies. I think he's like 7 years old when they filmed it or something like that. And you want to talk about the horrors of war, and he kind of is forced to not necessarily grow up, but witness and the atrocities. And John Malkovich is in it, and yeah, I mean that's a World War II movie that isn't like a World War II movie. I mean, yeah. Anyway,
But
we can talk about that too. But
anything else, Jack?
yeah, let me know.
Uh,
Yeah, Jack, anything else?
that's all from me.
All right. Well, if you have enjoyed this episode, please leave a review. The stars do matter. You can find us for additional content over on Instagram and Facebook under the Armchair Commanders podcast. We also have a Discord page where we do live viewing parties from time to time, so please join us over there as well. We also have we have a YouTube channel as well. It's under the name History Apprentice, uh, where you can find our episodes posted there, as well as my own occasional random history postings. Thank you again so much for joining us. As said before, go and give History X a follow on YouTube and all the other platforms. And until next week, I've been John.
And I'm Jack.
My name's Ken from History X.
And we will catch you all later.
Bye.